In the heart of the Valley of Mexico, the Great Lake shimmers under the first light of dawn. The year is around 1500 CE, and the Aztec capital Tenochtitlan is slowly coming to life. This island city is home to bustling marketplaces, towering temple pyramids, and countless humble homes of ordinary people. In one such home, a simple adobe house with a thatched roof, an average Aztec family begins another day. The air is cool and still. From the east, the sun Tonatiuh rises steadily, considered a divine force that the people greet with reverence each morning. Roosters crow and turkeys stir in their pens, signaling that night has ended. Children yawn and rub their eyes as their parents stoke the low cooking fire. Daily life in the Aztec Empire starts early, ruled by the cycle of the sun and the demands of family, work, and faith. In this gentle narrative, we will walk through a typical day from morning to night, exploring every aspect of Aztec daily life in calm and rich detail. We will imagine the routine of an average commoner's family, their home and family structure, the food they prepare, the clothes they wear, the work they do, and how they educate their children. We will visit the lively markets, observe religious rituals woven into everyday tasks, and join in quiet moments of leisure at day's end. Throughout, we'll also note the rhythms of seasons and the yearly festivals that punctuate the passage of time. The Aztec world was vibrant and complex, yet for most people, life's pace was steady and cyclical, perfectly suited for a slow, sleep-friendly journey into the past. Settle in now, as we drift back in time. Imagine the sounds of distant flute music and the gentle lap of lake water against canoe boats. Breathe in the faint scent of wood smoke and corn masa wafting from cooking fires. Let us begin our walk through a day in the life of an ordinary Aztec family, step by step from dawn to dusk, uncovering the intimate details of a world both foreign and familiar. Each scene will be described in a soft, calming tone, like a bedtime story of a day long ago, to lull you into a restful understanding of Aztec daily life. Dawn. Waking to a new day, it is dawn in the Aztec city. The sky grows lighter as Huitzilopochtli, the warrior sun god, begins his daily journey. Inside a modest home, faint gray light filters through a doorway covered only by a woven reed mat. There is no wooden door. In many Aztec homes, doorways are open or covered by cloth, as close-knit neighbors trust one another, and theft is rare. The floors are packed earth, swept clean, and the walls are adobe plastered smooth, tinted orange by the rising sun. A family of 5 has been sleeping on woven reed mats on the floor, with woven blankets for warmth. Now they stir as morning comes. The mother, who has likely been awake since the first rooster crowed, rises from her mat. She is a young woman, perhaps in her 20s. Like most women of her class, she keeps her black hair long, but tied back out of the way. She wears a simple cotton hopili, a sleeveless blouse-like tunic, and a wrapped skirt called a cuatil, secured with a sash at her waist. Her clothing is humble, woven from coarse maguey plant fiber rather than luxurious cotton, which only the wealthy can easily afford. Still, her garments are clean and neat. Aztecs value cleanliness and appearance, no matter their status. Each morning she follows the advice that Aztec parents often gave their daughters: dress well, wash yourself and wash your clothes, a recipe for both personal hygiene and family harmony. The father of the family also rises with the sun. He stretches and rolls up his sleeping mat to store against the wall. He dresses in a plain loincloth called a maxtlut, and a simple cape known as a tilmatli. His tilma is made of agave fiber cloth, and ties over one shoulder. For now, he leaves it off to the side, as he prepares to do some early chores. Like most common men, he keeps his hair at medium length, not shaved, but not as long as the distinguished warriors or nobility. He slips on his sandals made of leather and fibers. Among commoners, sandals are worn for practical purposes or travel, and one might go barefoot at home. Today he will head to the fields at first light, so he readies his farming tools, a wooden digging stick, hoe, and a small woven bag for carrying food. Before the day's work begins in earnest, the family observes a quiet moment of prayer. At their small household shrine, a tiny shelf in the corner of the one-room home with clay figurines of the gods, the father gently offers a pinch of copal incense. The fragrant smoke curls upward. In many Aztec homes, a portion of the house is set aside as a shrine, with idols or images of deities. Here the family humbly asks the gods for blessing on the new day. Perhaps they pray to Shantiko, the hearth goddess, or Teldil, patron of purity and household. As they light the new day's fire on the hearth, the crackling of the little fire and the sweet smell of incense create a peaceful atmosphere in the dim morning light. Now it is time for morning chores. As light increases, the family breaks into gentle activity. The mother's first task is to grind maize for the morning meal. She kneels by the metate, a flat grinding stone, and starts rhythmically crushing nixtamalized corn kernels with a stone roller mano. This work is physically demanding, but utterly routine. Every Aztec household processes corn daily. It is said the daily preparation of corn masa dough consumed thousands of hours of a woman's life, in soaking, hulling, and grinding the kernels. The soft scraping sound of stone on stone is comforting in its familiarity. She adds a bit of water and forms the dough. Soon she pats out fresh tortillas, toasting them on a clay comal griddle over the fire. The aroma of toasting maize fills the home. While his wife grinds corn, the father steps outside. The cool morning dew clings to the earth. If they have a little courtyard garden, he checks the chili peppers and herbs growing in pots. Perhaps he walks a short distance to fetch water. In Tenochtitlan, clean fresh water is supplied by aqueducts that bring spring water into the city. There are public fountains and reservoirs where commoners can fill jars each day. He carries a clay jug cantaro down the narrow alley of their neighborhood. Kalpuli, exchanging morning greetings with neighbors who are also up. The city is remarkably clean at this hour. In fact, Aztec street sweepers have already been at work before dawn, as they are every day, to keep the roads tidy. The Aztecs employ many public workers to sweep streets, maintain canals, and carry away waste. Unlike European cities of the time, the air is fresh, and the canals reflecting the pink sky are clear of debris. Back at home, the children awaken one by one. The family might have 3 children, an older boy of perhaps 12 years, a girl of 8, and a toddler just learning to walk. The older children quickly set to small chores of their own, tasks they have been taught since they were very young. The boy steps outside to gather some extra firewood for the hearth, or perhaps to help his father in the garden, emulating the adult work he will fully assume in a few years. The girl stays by her mother, helping to sweep the floor with a small broom. Daily sweeping is an important duty in every home. It not only keeps the house clean, but holds symbolic meaning, as sweeping is seen as a way of honoring the household gods and keeping out misfortune. In Aztec society, cleanliness and order are almost sacred. Even priests sweep the temples every morning as part of their rituals. The girl takes pride in her neat strokes, pushing dust out the door. In a corner, she sees her little brother stirring and coos to him, making sure he's safe while their mother cooks. Soon the family is ready to share a simple morning meal together. Unlike some other cultures that break their fast immediately after rising, the Aztecs traditionally eat only 2 main meals a day. They are hard-working people who often labor for a few hours at dawn, before having their first substantial food. This morning, however, the mother has prepared a warm drink called a tully to give everyone energy. Atulli, or atulli, is a nourishing gruel made from maize dough cooked in water. She stirs the steaming pot and ladles out portions into clay bowls. She might flavor it with a pinch of ground cacao or honey if available, or more commonly with chili or herbs to make it savory. Alongside the atulli, There are fresh tortillas she's made, and perhaps a dollop of beans from yesterday's pot. The family gathers on reed mats around the low hearth. There is no separate dining room or table in their one-room home, so they eat sitting on the floor mats or on low stools. They thank the gods for the food before eating, recognizing maize as a sacred gift of the earth. In Aztec legend, maize was given to humans by the god Quetzalcoatl, and it remains the staple of their diet. Every bite of tortillas in a way, a spiritual substance as well as physical sustenance. The parents hand each child a warm tortilla. The older boy folds his around some beans and chili peppers for flavor, making a rudimentary taco. The little girl might sprinkle a few salt crystals on hers. Plain salted tortillas are a common fare for commoners. They sip the thick atole slowly. It is warm, filling, and blandly pleasant, coating their bellies for the hard work ahead. As they eat, the mother gently reminds the children of the day's tasks. Perhaps it is a day when the older boy will accompany his father to the chinampa fields. The families plot on the floating gardens in the lake, or to the milpa dry field on the mainland. The girl might go with her mother later to the market, to help carry produce or to watch her baby brother. If it's a school day, the boy might instead head to the Telpa Kali, the local youth house for training, and the girl will practice weaving at home. Each day has its rhythm, but the morning meal is always a moment of togetherness, however brief, before everyone departs to their duties. The meal finished, the mother carefully gathers any crumbs or spilled cornmeal. Nothing is wasted. Leftover bits might be offered in the fire, or set aside for feeding the turkeys or dogs. The hearth fire is banked, but kept smoldering, so she can easily revive it later for the main midday cooking. By now, sunlight is pouring in through the doorway, illuminating the simple interior of the home. A few wooden chests against the wall for storing their spare clothing and blankets, some clay pots and gourds neatly stacked, and the family's sleeping mats rolled up and propped in a corner. The one-room house is tidy and organized, despite its small size. Having cleaned up, the mother and daughter cover their heads with light shawls and step outside. They will go to the neighborhood market to trade for a few necessities before returning to prepare the main meal. The father and son, meanwhile, prepare to depart for the fields. The father wraps his coarse tilma cloak around himself and takes up his digging stick. The son, eager to help, carries a net bag with some provisions, a couple of tortillas and a gourd of water, and a coil of rope. They step out into the bright morning. The city is fully awake now. From their district, they can see the white walls of temples in the distance, and hear faint echoes of drums from the central ceremonial precinct, where priests might be greeting the sun with ritual music. But here in the residential Kalpuli, the sounds are of normal life. Neighbors calling hellos, dogs barking, the splash of women washing clothes in the canal. Mother and daughter wave as father and son set off down a narrow street, headed to the causeways that lead out to the farms. Thus the family scatters to their daytime labors, as do thousands of other families across Tenochtitlan and the surrounding countryside. Morning in the Aztec world is filled with purpose and activity, yet it unfolds calmly and methodically. There is a sense of order. Each person knows their role. Every chore has its time. The sun climbs higher, promising a warm day. Let us now follow each thread of this family's life in turn. Their food and cooking, their clothing and cleanliness, their home and family structure, their work, their education, their beliefs, and how they spend their leisure. By examining these in detail, we gain a slow, immersive understanding of how an average person in the Aztec Empire lived from day to day, season to season. Food and cooking practices, maize chilies and the hearth food is at the very center of daily life for the Aztec family. From the early grind of maize in the morning to the final meal at sunset, preparing and sharing food is a constant rhythmic activity. The Aztec diet for common people is simple, healthy, and remarkably varied in ingredients. though corn is always the cornerstone. Maize is not just a crop, it is revered as our flesh, our bones, as an Aztec poem calls it. They believe humans were literally made from corn in some creation stories. Every meal is an echo of that sustenance from the gods. The staples: maize, beans, and squash maize. Corn is life. Virtually every dish in the Aztec diet contains maize in some form. The family's daily routine revolves around it. Each morning the mother grinds the soaked corn kernels to make masa dough. This dough is then transformed into tortillas, tamales, atole, or pozole, maize stew, depending on the occasion. For ordinary days, thin corn tortillas are the most common form, eaten warm and fresh at meals, or carried cold to the fields as portable food. Tortillas act as both plate and utensil, wrapping other foods or scooping up stews. For variety, sometimes the masa is cooked as tamales, corn dough steamed in corn husks, or banana leaves with a filling of beans, chili, or vegetables. However, tamales are a bit more labor-intensive and are often reserved for special occasions or festival days for common folk. The everyday meal is more likely a stack of plain tortillas and a pot of beans. Beans ettle are the second pillar of the diet. Black beans, pinto beans, and others are grown in the region and provide vital protein. Typically, a clay pot of beans simmers on the hearth through the day, flavored simply with salt and perhaps episode. Come mealtime, spoonfuls of beans will be placed onto tortillas or eaten as a stew. Combined with maize, beans make a nutritionally complete meal, something the Aztecs may not articulate scientifically, but they know from tradition that maize and beans sustain strength. A basic meal for a commoner often consists of maize in one form or another, tortillas or tamales, and beans or squash, sometimes with chili peppers or wild greens for flavor. This was truly the daily bread of Mesoamerica. Squash, eyotes, and pumpkin are also staples, often grown alongside corn and beans in the milpa field, the classic three sisters of agriculture. The vines of squash creep between the corn stalks, and their blossoms and fruit end up in the cooking pot. The family might roast squash, boil it, or cut it into the bean stew. Squash seeds are eaten too, sometimes toasted as a snack. Chili peppers, chili, are another daily ingredient. Even if a family has little else, a bit of chili can spice up corn porridge or beans. Aztecs love chili heat. It stimulates the appetite and adds excitement to the simplest meal. In our family's home, a small basket of dried red chilies hangs by the hearth, ready to be crushed or rehydrated for sauces. They also cultivate fresh green chilies in season. Children learn to enjoy spicy food early on, though they might be given only a little at first. Beyond these, the family's garden and local fields provide other vegetables. Tomatoes, the small native citamalo, horizontal greens, similar to amaranth greens, quilites, wild edible greens like lamb's quarters, and avocados. When in season, herbs such as episode, sage, and cilantro-like herbs are used for flavor. Amaranth grain is another cultivated food. Its leaves are eaten as greens, and its seeds can be toasted and formed into bars with honey, a treat often used ritually. The Aztecs make a kind of porridge from amaranth or chia seeds for additional nourishment. All these vegetarian ingredients form the backbone of daily meals. It might be surprising, but meat is relatively scarce in the commoner's daily diet. Large domestic animals, like cows, sheep, or pigs, do not exist in pre-Hispanic Mexico. Instead, the only domesticated animals kept for food are turkeys, huexolotl, ducks, and small hairless dogs, itzcuintli. However, these valuable animals are typically reserved for special feasts or as offerings to the gods. A family might raise a turkey or a few dogs, but they wouldn't slaughter them for an ordinary dinner. Those are more likely saved for a festival or a noble's table. Thus, most days, meat comes from wild sources, If at all, perhaps the father snares a rabbit, or catches some fish, or the children collect some grasshoppers to roast. Cooking at the hearth. All cooking is done on the hearth, usually a 3-stone fireplace on the floor of the home, or just outside the doorway. 3 large stones support cooking pots, and the flat comal griddle. The fuel is wood or dried grasses, sometimes charcoal. The mother is in charge of managing the fire, a skill passed from mother to daughter. In the morning, she rekindles the fire from embers saved overnight. An educational PDF snippet described how a mother would restart the fire each dawn. She carefully adds kindling and coaxes a flame to life, then feeds larger sticks. The children might blow on the coals under her supervision. Once the flame is steady, the comal is placed on the stones for making tortillas, or a clay pot is set directly among the stones for boiling. A typical kitchen setup in a commoner's house is minimal but efficient. There will be a metic grinding stone and mano for corn and spices, a comal griddle, a flat ceramic disc for baking tortillas, a few clay pots of different sizes for boiling and stewing, wooden stirring sticks and serving spoons, gourd bowls and ladles, and baskets for storing dry corn, beans and chili. Hanging from the rafters might be strings of dried foods, red chili peppers, ears of corn and crocks of salt, obtained from salt lakes or traded, and lime. Calcium hydroxide for nixtamalizing corn are tucked in the corner. The room is often smoky from the cooking fire, as there is usually no chimney. The smoke finds its way out through the door or small thatch gaps. The Aztecs don't seem to mind a bit of smoke. In fact, biting smoke from a smoldering fire is even used as a disciplinary measure for naughty children, as we'll see later. The mother of our family spends many hours a day at this hearth. After the dawn grinding and tortilla making, she will later prepare the main meal around midday or early afternoon, and possibly a lighter supper near nightfall. The midday meal, next section, is typically the largest of the day, and often features a stew, or talas sols, to scoop up with tortillas. She might cook talas ulas, a simple stew of corn and beans, or a chili sauce to go with more tortillas. If the men have brought back fish or game, she will clean and cook that as a special addition. The Aztecs possess a rich culinary tradition with various dishes despite the limited animal meat. For example, they make mixiotes, foods steamed in maguey leaf wrappers, pozole, a hominy soup, predecessor to the pozole of today, tamales stuffed with vegetables or turkey when available, and sauces like mole, from which we get the word mole. A common sauce might be a puree of pumpkin seeds and tomatoes, or a green sauce of miltomate, tomatillo, and chili. These sauces are ground on a smaller grinding stone, called a molcaji, volcanic stone mortar, and pestle, another tool likely present in the kitchen. Flavors and seasoning in the Aztec kitchen come from many sources: chili for heat, salt for taste, wild herbs for aroma, chocolate, and vanilla in elite kitchens for special drinks, and sweeteners like honey from wild bees or maguey sap syrup. Ordinary folk do not have sugar, unknown in the Americas, but they do enjoy naturally sweet foods like fruits, mamey, prickly pear tunas, chico zapote, and the occasional treat of honey. A mother might mix ground toasted amaranth with honey to make a alegría, a sort of candy for a festival day. It is worth noting how integrated with religion food is. Corn has its own deities, like Chico Mecoatl, the maize goddess, and Centeotl, the maize god. Every stage of agriculture and cooking was accompanied by ritual. When the mother drops corn kernels into the grinding bowl, she may breath on them and address them with respect, a gesture of gratitude to the spirit of maize. If any kernels fall to the ground, they are carefully picked up, for wasting maize is almost a sin, a potential cause of famine if the corn goddess is angered. During planting season, the father said prayers as he sowed seeds, and during harvest, they thanked the earth with offerings of the first fruits. Even domestic cooking has little rituals, like offering the first tortilla of the batch to the fire, or to the courtyard for the household gods. Eating habits and meal times. The Aztec family's eating schedule is a bit different from modern norms. As mentioned, they usually eat 2 main meals a day. The first, brunch-like meal comes a few hours after sunrise, once some work has been done. In our narrative, we saw them have a light breakfast of atoll and tortillas. In other cases, a farmer might head to the fields at dawn without eating, work for a few hours, then pause around mid-morning to take a meal he carried with him. That mid-morning break might be tortillas, with a smear of beans or avocado, or leftovers from yesterday, eaten under the shade of a tree at the field's edge. The second and largest meal is taken during the hottest part of the day, roughly at midday or early afternoon. This is when the sun is high, and it's sensible to rest from labor. The father and son will come home from the fields, or if it's too far, they might eat in the field a meal the mother brought out to them. The mother will by then have cooked a stew or something filling. They gather and eat together as a family in the shade of their home. There is typically no late evening heavy dinner. After the midday feast, adults might have only a light snack at nightfall, perhaps a few more tortillas, with chili, or a bit of porridge to soothe hunger before bed. Eating too much at night is thought to be unhealthy, and also one simply winds down activity after dark. So, the day's eating tapers off. Children might have a bit of fruit in the afternoon, or some toasted maize as a snack. But by night, the hearth's fire is low, and only embers remain, reflecting the quieting of daily activity. During feasts or festivals, of course, this pattern is broken by abundance. On a festival day, families prepare extra food, tamayas, maybe turkey or cacao chocolate drinks if they can afford it. They host relatives or share food with neighbors. But in the calm routine of normal days, the simple 2-meal rhythm keeps everyone nourished and ready for work without excess. It's important to emphasize how labor-intensive obtaining food is for the Aztec commoner. The family grows some of their own staples on their chinampa, or garden, and pays part of it as tribute to their overlords. What they keep, the mother stores in large baskets or bins: dried ears of maize, dried beans, chilies, etc. She must plan these stores to last from one harvest to the next. Grinding corn every day is tiring. In fact, one of the hallmarks of a comfortable life is having someone else do this grinding. Wealthier homes might have servant women or slaves to help grind corn and make large numbers of tortillas. But our average family cannot afford servants, so it's all on the household's women. A saying goes that an Aztec woman grinds corn as much as a warrior fights. Her daily grind is as vital as any battle. Because of this effort, the family supplements their diet with foods that require less processing when possible. For instance, wild foods gathered from the environment add nutrition with relatively little labor beyond collecting them. Children and women often forage for greens, mushrooms, nuts, and edible insects. Around the lake region, ahuatl water bug eggs, known as Mexican caviar, can be collected on reeds. These tiny eggs are nutritious and can be toasted. Spirulina algae, tequitlatl, is skimmed from the lake surface, dried into cakes, and eaten or sold in the market. It has a cheese-like flavor and is rich in protein. The lake also provides fish, such as small whitefish, frogs, tadpoles, and shrimp, which can be caught in nets. The father, or perhaps specialized fisherman relatives, could catch these, and the family would roast or stew them. In the forests nearby, men might hunt deer or peccary, but that's rare near the densely populated center. Smaller game like rabbits, armadillos, iguanas, and birds are more commonly caught. Even insects like grasshoppers, chapulines, and ants are collected. The Aztecs happily roast grasshoppers with chili and lime, a crunchy treat full of protein. These wild foods are not everyday staples, but occasional boosts or seasonal additions, and they reflect how attuned the Aztecs are to using all resources of their environment. Drinks in daily life are simple. Water is a primary drink, and they ensure it's clean by using the fresh aqueduct water or by boiling from the lake. They also drink aguas frescas, like beverages, perhaps soaking hibiscus flowers to make a tart red drink, or fermenting maguey sap to make akli pulque, though pulque, an alcoholic milky drink, is usually reserved for adults, and even then taken in moderation. More on that in leisure section. For energy in the morning, many commoners rely on atoll maize gruel, rather than what we might think of as coffee or tea. However, the nobles and merchants sometimes drink chocolate, cacahuat, a luxury made by grinding cacao beans with spices and whipped into water to foam. But our average family cannot afford cacao for daily use. If they ever get a few cacao beans, they might trade them in the market, since cacao beans serve as a form of small currency in the empire. Indeed, 1 or 2 cacao beans might buy a small item at market. Better to spend them on necessities than consume them. From a commoner's perspective, by midday, our family's father and son have returned from their work to enjoy the main meal the mother has cooked. Let us imagine today, she prepared a dish of quilites con frijol, wild greens, stewed with beans, and a little tomato and chili. She also made fresh tortillas again, grinding a second batch of corn in late morning. The family sits in the shade outside their door, as a slight breeze relieves the midday heat. The mother serves the stew in bowls and hands out tortillas. They eat contentedly, using tortillas to scoop the savory beans and greens. The baby happily sucks on a tortilla piece, his first teeth coming in. The older boy, hungry from field work, devours several tortillas rapidly. The father may sprinkle a bit of chili powder on his food for extra spice. Between bites, they talk. Perhaps the father tells what he saw at the chinamp, maybe a good crop of maize tasseling nicely, or pests he had to pick off the squash leaves. The mother shares news from the market. What prices are this week? Any gossip of the neighborhood. It's a time of family bonding and rest. After eating their fill, the family might rest briefly. In the heat of early afternoon, a short nap or simply sitting quietly is common, if work allows. Children play nearby. The boy might practice with his little bow at a target. The girl might sing to the baby, or play a clapping game. The mother puts away leftovers, and ensures the fire is out, or safe. They all know soon, the father and perhaps the son will return to work in the fields until evening, and the mother might start other chores like spinning cotton or weaving. But for this moment, they savor the fullness in their bellies, and the comfort of family around them. As we leave the topic of food, we have seen that the Aztec daily diet is one of humble abundance, not rich in meats or fats, but abundant in plant foods, skillfully grown and prepared. The acts of planting, grinding, cooking, and eating are full of meaning, tied to the earth and the gods. It is a cuisine of corn and chili, simple and sustaining, and even a bit celebratory when the occasion allows. With this sustenance, the Aztec commoner has the energy to fulfill all the other duties of life, from farming, to building, to worshipping. Now that we have dined, so to speak, let us explore how these people present themselves. Their clothing, grooming, and hygiene, which the Aztecs took very seriously. Clothing and personal appearance. Attire of the common people under the bright Mexican sun. The Aztec commoner dresses in light, practical clothing suited to the warm days and cooler nights. Clothing is not merely for covering the body. It also signifies social status, gender roles, and even moral expectations in Aztec society. Yet for the average person, the wardrobe is quite straightforward and likely limited to a few well-worn items, all made by hand within the household or traded for in the market. Sumptuary laws. Laws regulating consumption are strict. How one dresses is actually regulated by class. Commoners are expected to dress modestly and use humble materials, saving the fine cottons and brilliant featherwork for the nobility. Still, within those limits, people take pride in being neat, clean, and well-presented, as it reflects an orderly life and respect for oneself and others. Everyday dress for men. Our Aztec father wears the typical male attire for a commoner. His basic garment is the loincloth, in Nahuatl called maxtlat. This is a long strip of cloth, often cotton or maguey fiber, wound around his hips, passed between the legs and tucked for a secure fit, somewhat like a breechcloth. It covers his private areas but leaves the legs free, which is practical for working in the fields or walking through water on the Chinampas. Over this, he wears a cloak or cape called tilmatli, or tilma for short. The tilma is usually a square or rectangular piece of cloth with a necktie, or just draped over one shoulder and under the opposite arm, tied in a knot on the chest. For a commoner, the tilma is made of coarse agave fiber cloth, also known as ayat, not the softer cotton, unless he's been fortunate to trade for one. The color is often undyed, or a simple earthy tone. Bright dyed cloaks with patterns are typically reserved for nobility or warriors who earn special outfits. The length of the tilma also indicates status. Common folk wear it knee-length or above, while nobles can wear ankle-length flowing cloaks. He does not wear a shirt. The concept of a sewn shirt with sleeves didn't exist in their attire. The upper body is left bare, except for the cloak. His arms and shoulders therefore are exposed to sun and air most of the time, giving him a bronzed complexion from outdoor labor. On his feet when needed, he has sandals cactli. These are made of leather soles or woven agave fiber soles, tied with leather thongs around the ankle. Sandals protect his feet when walking on rough ground or the city's streets that might have occasional sharp stones. Interestingly, Aztec commoners were required to go barefoot in the presence of the emperor or high nobles, as a sign of humility, but in daily life they wear sandals for practicality. In fact, there were laws that commoners could only wear sandals when traveling, not in the royal palace. His hair is kept at medium length. Many commoner men trim their hair short at the crown or cut straight across the forehead as a fringe, but leave it longer at the back. Young warriors, if our father had been one, might have a special cut. For example, after the first capture in battle, a young man would shave his head except for a long lock at the nape, the temalotl hairstyle. But as a simple farmer, our father probably keeps a practical cut. He may wear a headband on occasion, especially while working to keep sweat and hair out of his eyes. For work or sun, he has no broad hat. Those came with the Spanish later, but he might wear a simple woven straw shade if needed. However, typically he just endures the sun, or uses his cloak's edge as a cover for his head when it's very bright. Jewelry and adornment for a common man are minimal. He might have ear piercings. Many Aztec men, even commoners, pierced their ears and wore simple earplugs or rings of bone, wood, or copper. Heavy gold and jade earspools are the domain of nobles. Our farmer maybe wears a small piece of obsidian or shell as an ear ornament if he has any. He could also have a necklace of beads made from shells or clay, given to him by a relative, but nothing too flashy. Wristbands or ankle bands woven of fiber could be worn, but again, sumptuary rules prohibit commoners from wearing certain materials. For example, only nobles can wear feather decorations or turquoise. A commoner caught wearing a turquoise mosaic ornament or a rich feather cape could face severe punishment. So he stays within his means, plain and functional. Despite this simplicity, Aztec clothing is comfortable and well suited for their climate. On a hot day, the The loincloth alone is quite breezy and cool for working, and the cloak can be set aside. In the cooler evenings, or in the highland chill of morning, the cloak provides warmth. If it rains, he might oil his cloak with a bit of grease to make it somewhat water-resistant, or simply seek shelter. They did not have rain ponchos as such, but the magui fiber capes shed some water. Everyday dress for women. The Aztec mother's attire differs from the man's and is typical for married women of her class. She wears a blouse or tunic called a hupil. This is a sleeveless garment, essentially 2 or 3 pieces of cloth sewn together at the sides, with openings for the arms and head. It falls to somewhere between waist and mid-thigh in length, depending on style. Her hupil is woven at home on a backstrap loom, likely by her or her mother, using fibrous threads spun from the agave plant magi, or mix of magi and cotton if she was lucky to have cotton yarn. Common women often wear undyed or modestly decorated hupils, perhaps with a few woven patterns in the yoke or around the hem. Brightly colored and intricately embroidered hupils are more for noble women or for ceremonial dress. By law, commoner women's clothes were made of rough magi fiber, and cotton textiles were a luxury only occasionally used. The magi or century plant furnished the masses of the people with their clothing, because the common man used cotton only on rare occasions, if at all, observed one chronicler. Still, if our mother lives near the lake where cotton can be traded, she might have one treasured cotton blouse for festival days. Day to day, it's the scratchier magi cloth. Below the hupil, she wears a skirt called kupil. The skirt is a wraparound style, a long piece of cloth wrapped around her waist, overlapping at the front or side, and secured with a woven sash or belt, called a chupil. The skirt typically reaches to her ankles or at least mid-calf. For a working woman, ankle-length skirts might be less practical, so she may tie it a bit higher when she needs to move freely. The fabric again is usually magi fiber cloth or a blend. It could be plain or have stripes. Commoner women's skirts were often striped or dyed in simple colors, whereas noble women could wear elaborate patterns. The mother's skirt perhaps has earthy red or brown horizontal stripes near the hem, a common design in indigenous clothing that survived into later Mexican traditional dress. She also might have a simple shawl or cloak called a rebozo or tilmathli for women. In many depictions, women wear a kind of shawl over their head or shoulders, especially married women. It protects from sun and can carry items like a baby or a bundle, if needed. Our mother likely owns a shawl, mantle of rough cotton or agave fiber, which she can drape over her head when the sun is strong or use to cradle her toddler on her back. Indeed, Aztec women often carry babies tied in a rebozo on their back while they do chores, a practice still seen in Mexico today. The baby is snugly wrapped against her as she goes about grinding corn or walking to market. On her feet, the woman usually goes barefoot or wears sandals similar to men's. Sandals for women are seen in some codices. However, some sources say women typically did not wear sandals as often as men, especially within the home. If she goes out to the marketplace or to travel, she could wear sandals, and commoner women were allowed this, since footwear restrictions mostly applied to court appearances. However, iconography often shows women barefoot, possibly because the act of going barefoot had ritual humility connotations. Our mother, if the ground is not too harsh, may often walk barefoot, the soles of her feet toughened by years of living this way. For a longer journey, she might put on simple sandals made from woven fiber. Hair and grooming for women are important. A young maiden might wear her hair loose or with ribbons, but a married woman typically ties her hair up. One common style is a braided hairstyle, wound up on the top of the head or 2 side buns, something like what we call Princess Leia buns. Interestingly, an Aztec style for married women. Our mother might part her hair and wrap the lengths around bits of cloth to create 2 round buns over her ears, securing them with textile bands. a style called temelotl for women. Or she could simply tie her hair back in a single braid down her back. Personal adornment includes maybe a pair of earrings, perhaps small hoops of copper or bone. She might also wear a necklace of jade beads, if inherited, or more likely small shells or green stones collected from the lakeshore. Around her wrists, she could tie narrow ribbons or wear woven bracelets. Aztec women also sometimes painted their face or lips for festivals, but it was considered improper to overly paint oneself daily, as the advice from father to daughter in the Florentine Codex suggests. Never put red on your mouth to look beautiful. If you want your husband to love you, dress well and wash yourself. Implying virtue is shown through cleanliness and proper dress, not heavy cosmetics. Cleanliness and laundry. One striking aspect of Aztec clothing is how clean they keep it despite few garments. The Aztecs are noted by the Spaniards as being exceptionally clean people. They wash their clothes frequently, in contrast to Europeans of the same era who sometimes avoided washing fabrics. Our mother likely does laundry every few days. She might go to a canal or stream, soak and scrub the clothes with roots of the amole plant, soap plant, which produce lather. The Aztecs made natural detergents from plants. The root of shuamoli soapwort, or the fruit of the copaloxocotl, soapry tree yields a soapy foam that cleans cloth and skin. She scrubs the loincloths, skirts and cloaks on rocks and lays them out to dry in the sun. Given the climate of central Mexico, clothes dry quickly under the intense sun. Stains are treated with things like ashes or herbs. White clothes, like ceremonial white garments, can be brightened with a light scrub of chalky clay. She likely also washes her family's straw mats and blankets from time to time, hanging them over a line. The water in the lake is alkaline, which actually helps clean, and also, after nixtamalizing corn with lime, they are used to the idea of minerals aiding cleaning. So between soap plants, ashes and scrubbing, the clothes of the family are kept surprisingly spotless. They do not have many spares, so clothes are washed and reused frequently. The children's clothing is similar to their parents in form. The young boy has a tiny loincloth and perhaps a miniature cloak once he passed toddler age. Very small children might initially go naked in the warm weather until about age 3 or 4. But by custom, by the age of 5, children begin to dress in small versions of adult attire and are taught to be modest. The girl wears a tiny skirt and little hooper if available. At her age 8, she definitely wears a simple blouse and skirt daily. Mothers train girls early how to wrap their skirts securely and keep their hooper if clean. Clothing is part of moral upbringing. Aztecs believed in avoiding excess and maintaining decency, so even in attire, they discouraged vanity. One remarkable thing about Aztec commoner attire is that it is homemade. The mother likely wove the fabric for her family's clothes on a backstrap loom. This means growing or obtaining fiber, cotton or maggie, spinning it into yarn with a spindle, setting up the loom, a task that can take days of careful warping and weaving each piece. A single tilma or skirt could take weeks to weave by hand. Often tribute taxes required commoner women to weave a certain number of cloths for the state or local lords, an additional burden. So clothing is precious. Each piece might be used and patched for many years. When completely worn out, old cloth can be recycled into rags or shredded for padding or traded as scrap. Thus, the Aztec family doesn't have a closet full of outfits. They have a few multi-purpose garments that they maintain well. On special occasions they might don a nicer cloak, or the wife might wear her best embroidered hooper. But on an average day, it's the sturdy work clothes. Even so, they decorate themselves for festivals, or to feel good. The mother might weave a pattern of flowers, or simple geometric borders, into her daughter's new hooper as a loving touch. The father, if he achieved something in war or in the community, might earn the right to wear a slightly more colorful cloak or an embroidered sash. Community identity can also show in clothing. People of one Kalpali district might prefer certain colors or patterns handed down by tradition. It's subtle for commoners, but there. Overall, the look of an average Aztec commoner is humble but dignified. Earth-toned clothes, neat braids or tied-back hair, clean skin, and perhaps a small piece of jewelry like shell earrings. When the Spanish first met Aztec people, they were struck by how well-groomed and well-dressed even the ordinary workers were, compared to the peasants they knew in Europe, who often had filthy, tattered clothing. An account noted the Aztecs bathed often and wore clean clothes, while the Spaniards wore the same wool outfits for weeks. This gave the Aztecs an impression of civility and refinement. Hygiene and bathing. Cleanliness as a way of life. To the Aztecs, cleanliness is next to godliness, quite literally, since purification is a key part of their ritual life. Both in personal habits and public sanitation, the Aztec Empire was notably clean by the standards of the 16th century. This is a point of pride and daily practice. Being physically clean is associated with moral purity and health, and the people incorporate bathing, grooming, and home cleanliness into their routine in a way that might astonish outsiders. Daily bathing and the temazcal steam bath. Most Aztec commoners bathe regularly, often daily or every few days, depending on water availability. Living by the lakes and rivers, they have ample access to water. In the morning or evening, one might take a quick dip in the lake or a canal to rinse off. Children play in the water and get clean at the same time. The conquistadors, like Andres de Tapia and Bernal Diaz, marveled that even Emperor Moctezuma bathed twice a day in luxurious baths. But the truth is that wasn't so extraordinary in Aztec culture. Many common people bathe daily in rivers or pools as well. The climate is such that frequent washing is pleasant and hygienic. Additionally, most households, or at least neighborhoods, have access to a steam bathhouse, called a temazcal. A temazcal is like a small adobe or stone igloo-shaped structure, windowless, with a low doorway. Inside is a space just large enough for a few people to sit or lie down. One wall or corner has a firebox, or area where stones are heated. To use the bath, a fire is built to heat the stones intensely. Then the fire is removed or raked out, and the bather enters the little hut, often nude or with a loincloth. Water is then splashed onto the hot stones, creating billows of steam, essentially a sauna. The bather may rub their skin with herbs or have someone like a professional bath attendant or a family member gently flog them with leafy branches or herbal bundles to stimulate sweat and blood flow. This sounds intense, but it's actually relaxing and cleansing. The sweating carries out impurities, and the steam opens pores. After a good steam, the person can rinse with cool water. It is invigorating. Aztecs used the temazcal for health and ritual purification. Mothers who have just given birth go to the temazcal to recover, and babies too may get a gentle steam. People use it if they feel ill, like a remedy for fever or aches. Warriors purify themselves in it after returning from war, washing off not just dirt, but symbolic impurity. And often, it's just for the simple purpose of a bath. Many Aztec homes were equipped with a small steam bathhouse, typically adjacent to the main house. In the city, not every single dwelling might have its own, but perhaps every extended family compound or each kalpuli had several. Chroniclers said almost every building had such a bathhouse or temazcali. Commoners and nobles alike used them, though nobles had larger, more ornate ones. Our family's house might have a little temazcal out back, basically a domed mud brick structure. It's an important part of their life. Imagine in the evening, after a long day, the father decides to take a steam bath. He or his son will light the fire in the temazcal's pit. heating the stones for an hour or so. Once ready, he crawls inside. The doorway is small. One often crawls in, another act of humility to the bath goddess. The mother might join, or perhaps she stays to pour water from outside, if the design allows. Inside the dark hut, lit only by the red glow of the stones, the father sits and begins to sweat as the steam hisses up. He might use a handful of dry broom straw to slap his skin, or eucalyptus-like herbs. The Aztecs had temazcal herb for bath. The sweat pours, carrying away grime and stress. In Aztec belief, there is even a deity of the steam bath, Temazcal Texe, grandmother of bath, who watches over this cleansing ritual. They might quietly pray to her for good health during the bath. Outside, the children giggle at the clouds of steam puffing from the little hut. After he's done, the father emerges cooled and refreshed, clean as can be. For everyday washing without a full steam, the family uses the lake or a basin. Face washing and hand washing every morning is actually advised by elders. One piece of parental advice recorded was to a daughter: in the morning wash your face, wash your hands, clean your mouth. Personal hygiene upon waking was expected. They might keep a gourd of water at home to splash on the face, or they walk to the canal to rinse. They also often rinse their mouths after meals, or in the morning. Soap, deodorant, and dental care. Though the Aztecs do not have soap bars as we do, they ingeniously use natural soap plants. We mentioned the amole, soap plant, and copal, so-called soap tree, whose extracts produce suds. When washing their bodies or clothes, they crush these fruits in water to create lather. It's noted that the lather from these plants was rich enough to remove dirt effectively. They also use certain clays and ash as cleaning agents. A fine ash from burning certain woods can help scrub dishes or skin gently, akin to an alkaline soap effect. Deodorants and perfumes are a part of life too. Aztecs love pleasant smells. Flowers, resins, and herbs are used to scent the body. People often wear garlands of flowers during festivals, but even on normal days, some might tuck a fragrant blossom in their hair. There were herbal deodorants prepared from sweet-smelling flowers like untold, heart flower, or herbs like copal, aromatic resin applied to the body. They also burn copal incense, not just for gods, but to keep a pleasant scent in home and to fumigate clothing. Intriguingly, oral hygiene was also practiced. Aztecs were concerned with fresh breath and clean teeth. They used twigs and roots as toothbrushes, for instance, chewing on a stick until it frays, and then rubbing it on the teeth. They also employed tooth-cleaning powders, made of charcoal, burnt wood ash, or salt and pepper, chili seeds. One report mentions they used salt and ole, likely urine, to clean teeth, and other materials, like ashes, honey, roots, and barks. It's ambiguous whether Aztecs themselves used urine. It might be referencing Spanish practice, but certainly ash and salt were Aztec methods. After chewing food, they might swish water, or chew chicle, the sap of the sapodilla tree, which is basically natural chewing gum. Aztec women in particular were noted to chew chicle gum to freshen their breath and cleanse their mouths. This habit astonished the Spanish, who at that time did not have such practices. So every morning, our mother might chew a bit of sweet chicle sap with a minty leaf, then spit it out, leaving her breath fragrant. If someone had bad breath, they might be given aromatic roots to chew. Also, the Aztecs take care of their skin and hair. They bathe often, which helps skin, but they may also use oils from avocado or sage seeds to moisturize their skin or condition hair. They had combs made of wood or bone to untangle hair, and mirrors of polished obsidian to check their appearance. Clean, neat hair was admired. Lice, or very matted hair, would be considered poor hygiene. though head lice were likely present. They had ways to control them, maybe using certain plant oils or fine combs. Public sanitation and clean cities hygiene in the Aztec world extends beyond personal grooming. The cities themselves are kept impressively clean. Tenochtitlan was famously clean for a large city. The Spanish conquistador Cortés wrote that fresh water ran through one aqueduct, while another was used to carry away waste. The city had a dual aqueduct system from Chapultepec Springs. One channel brought clean water for drinking and bathing into the city, and periodically, they would switch to the second channel to clean out the first. This ensured a constant supply of potable water. Throughout the city, there were canals for sewage and waste removal, separate from drinking water, maintaining hygiene. In fact, the Aztecs diligently kept human waste out of the lake water they used for other purposes, instead collecting it for fertilizer. The city employed sweepers, about 1,000 men, whose job was to sweep streets and public places daily, as noted earlier. They also sprinkled water on the ground to keep dust down. Public toilets existed in markets and busy areas, basically designated latrine areas, which were cleaned regularly. The waste from latrines and night soil from households was loaded into canoes and taken to the Chinampa fields to use as fertilizer on crops. This was an ingenious recycling system. It kept the city sanitary and improved agricultural yield with natural fertilizer. Even garbage like organic refuse was likely composted or taken away. So walking through Tenochtitlan, one did not encounter heaps of garbage or sewage in the street. A stark contrast to European cities of the time. Instead, one might note a slight smell of burning incense and flowers rather than rot. The result is that an Aztec commoner's environment is relatively hygienic. They bathe, they clean their homes each morning, and the community ensures the public spaces are tidy. Sweeping and scrubbing are almost ritualized. Recall that daily sweeping by women is partly a spiritual ward against chaos. This emphasis on cleanliness is also tied to their concept of cosmic order. The world needs to be kept ritually pure through human action, just as the body needs to be kept pure. Health and body care, general hygiene practices contribute to health, and the Aztecs have a concept of preventive care. For example, they caution pregnant women to avoid overheating in steam baths, not too many baths around the belly, lest it cook the baby, and not to eat certain things like excessive crackle or dirt, which they believed could harm the unborn child. They also practice bloodletting and fasting as spiritual cleanses, though these are more religious than hygienic. Still, minor self-bloodletting, like pricking the ear or thigh to offer a few drops of blood to the gods, is done by some pious individuals. Ironically, a kind of ritual purification by shedding a bit of one's own blood. In terms of sickness, when someone does fall ill, hygiene steps up in other ways. They wash them, use herbal remedies, and the steam bath might be used with medicinal herbs, like sweating out a cold. The Aztec healers Tizitl also use massage and ventosas, suction cups, for therapy, which require cleaning the skin, etc. All these practices impress the Europeans, who wrote things like the Aztecs bathe, often use deodorants and breath fresheners, and even wash the streets. One Spanish friar, Sahagún, records a father's advice to a son about cleanliness and moderation, highlighting how ingrained these values were. So, as the afternoon wears on, perhaps our mother takes the kids to the canal for a quick rinse after they got dirty playing. She might scrub the baby, who loves splashing in the water, and rinse the dust off her daughter's feet. They may rub a little scented herb on their skin after bathing, emerging smelling of sage or wildflowers. In the golden light of late day, the family and their neighbors appear clean and refreshed, even after a sweaty day of work.
It's a pleasant sight, dark hair still damp and shining, skin glowing from steam and soap root, simple garments freshly laundered. As twilight approaches, the Aztec family is ready to settle in for the evening in a clean home, wearing clean clothes, having eaten well. But before we end the day, let's explore other dimensions of their lives, particularly their home and family structure, which we've glimpsed, and then their work and social roles, education, and how they spend time when not working. I'm when not working. I'm when not working. I'm when not working.
Housing and family structure. Home is where the hearth is. The average Aztec family lives in a simple house that is nonetheless the center of their universe. It is in this home that children are raised, daily prayers are offered, meals are cooked, and traditions handed down. To understand daily life, we must peek inside these dwellings and see how families are organized. Most Aztecs, aside from nobles, did not live in grand palaces. But their homes were adequate, and even cozy by the standards of the time. Often one-room houses made of adobe or wattle and daub, with thatched roofs, clustered in family compounds or villages. The commoner's home, our family's house, like most commoner dwellings, is a one-story, one-room structure built from local materials. In the Central Highlands, houses are commonly constructed of adobe bricks, sun-dried mud mixed with straw, which creates sturdy walls that keep the interior cool in the day and warm at night. Some houses, especially around lakes where reeds are plentiful, are made with wattle and daub interwoven sticks plastered with mud. The roof might be thatched with straw or reeds. Thatch is affordable and provides good insulation, though sometimes it must be repaired after heavy rains. In wealthier commoner homes or urban areas, roofs could be flat and made of packed earth on wooden beams, but in the countryside and outskirt barrios, a peaked thatch roof is typical. A few houses may even stand on a small platform of stones or a raised foundation about knee-high to prevent flooding and keep out pests. The house generally has one door facing east if possible, and perhaps a couple of small ventilation openings high up, but no glass windows or large openings. Those would let in rain and are harder to secure. As noted, often there isn't a hinged door. Instead, a woven mat or cloth can be hung to cover the doorway, or a simple wooden door is set but not locked, since in the tight-knit Kaupoli community, security comes from community trust and strict laws against theft. The floor is usually tamped earth, swept smooth daily. Some might have a basic lime plaster on the floor to harden it, but that's more common in wealthier homes. Many families lay patates reed mats on the floor, both for sitting and sleeping. These mats can be rolled up and moved around as needed, serving as chairs, beds, or even workspaces. Inside this single multi-purpose room, the space is informally divided for different functions. As described earlier, one corner is the kitchen area, identifiable by the 3 stones of the hearth and the presence of the medet, grinding stone, and stored pots. Another area might serve as the family shrine, a small table or simply a niche in the wall where figurines of gods stand with offerings. The sleeping area is basically the entire room at night. Mats are unrolled wherever there is space. However, perhaps along one side of the room, mats and bedrolls are piled during the day, showing that side to be the sleeping quarters. At night, the parents and younger children might sleep in one area, and older children in another area of the same room. Privacy as we think of it is minimal, but culturally it was normal. There might be a small loft area under the peak of the roof for storage. Some houses had a kind of attic shelf. Here they could keep baskets of dried food, extra firewood, and tools out of the way. Furniture is sparse. They don't have chairs with backs or high tables. Instead, they have stools at kauli, which are low woven seats or small wooden blocks to sit on. They have petate mats which serve as seats or beds. They might have a low table or bench used for various tasks, a place to put tools or for the mother to set her weaving aside. The mention from earlier was that they had reed mats to sleep on or sit on, and low tables for eating or doing small jobs or crafts on. So one could imagine a low wooden plank on short legs that acts as a communal table when people sit on the ground around it. especially if eating a meal or playing a game. Wooden chests or boxes are used to store clothing and treasured items. They might have one chest that contains their spare clothes, perhaps lined with cedar chips or herbs to repel insects. Another chest might hold valuables like obsidian blades, spare rope, ritual items, and any tribute goods ready to be paid. In one corner near the door, there might be a large jar for water storage, since the mother fetches water and keeps some on hand. Along the wall hang tools, the father's farming implements, cows, digging sticks, hunting bows, fishing nets, and maybe the loom for weaving. The backstrap loom can be rolled up and hung when not in use. Coiled ropes, baskets for carrying, and market mats. Each vendor brings a mat to display goods, could also be hanging or leaned against walls. Some houses had separate small structures for certain activities, if space allowed. A very common addition was, as we discussed, the steam bath hut, temescal, built just outside. It's usually a few steps from the main house, in the yard. Another possible small structure is a storage shed for crops, a tiny granary, or a raised platform to keep corn ears safe from rodents. In rural settings, you'd see corn cribs or raised baskets outside houses with the harvest stored. Many families also maintain a household garden or courtyard area. The house might sit on a small plot, where they grow herbs, chilies, and flowers. In the courtyard, they also do messy tasks like cotton, spinning, fluff flying, agave fiber processing, or pottery making if that's their craft. Our family's mother might take her cotton spindle and spin thread while sitting in the sun outside, where there's more light and ventilation than inside. The courtyard is also where children play, chickens scratch, and sometimes domestic turkeys or dogs are kept in pens. The Kalpuli neighborhood is arranged often in clusters of these family homes. Several one-room homes might stand near each other, housing an extended family, say our father's brothers and their wives, or the mother's sister's family, etc. It's common for extended family to live in the same district or even share a compound. Each nuclear family has its own house, but they are adjacent, maybe around a shared patio. They help each other. Older parents might stay with one of the children. So while our story focuses on one household, in reality, they are not isolated. Grandma might be next door, and an uncle's family on the other side. They likely dine together on festival days or cooperate in major work like building a new temescal or repairing a roof. The house construction and maintenance is a family effort too. Aztec commoners build their own houses, with help from friends under the concept of tikio, community labor. The father probably built this house when he married, perhaps on a plot allotted by the Kalpuli Council. It's modest, maybe 5 by 4 meters in size, about 16 by 13 feet inside, which archaeological finds in commoner sites confirm as typical dimensions. In more densely packed city areas, houses could be even smaller or share walls, but the family spends a lot of time outdoors, effectively extending their living space to the yard and street. They really only crowd inside when it rains or at night to sleep. The climate is such that life flows indoors and outdoors with ease. Notably, houses often did not have chimneys, so smoke from cooking must escape through eaves or door. This makes interiors somewhat smoky over time, darkening the thatch. To mitigate, some cooking is done just outside, if weather permits. People may also position the hearth near the door for better draft. The houses of nobles, by contrast, had multiple rooms, sometimes a second story. Commoners were forbidden to build 2-story houses by law, on pain of death. Nobles had stone foundations and lime-plastered walls, courtyards with gardens and fountains, and painted murals on walls. Commoners' houses are plain, earth-colored, perhaps whitewashed with lime, if they could afford a bit of lime for aesthetics. Whitewashing even a mud wall can brighten, and also disinfect it. Lime has that effect. Excavations show some commoner homes did have a coat of white or pink plaster. It's likely our family's house exterior has a coat of mud plaster, and maybe a slip of lime, making it look tidy and light in color. The roof thatch might have a decorative ridge, or a few pots on poles to hold it down against wind. Inside, decoration is minimal but not absent. They might hang a few bright woven textiles on the wall, like if the mother wove a particularly pretty textile, not needed as clothing, it could hang as decoration or as an offering to gods. Dried flowers or garlands from the last festival might hang at the shrine area. The family likely has some pet birds in cages or gourds, songbirds or quail that they enjoy, for sound. Aztecs kept colorful birds for feathers too, but commoners might keep a singing bird like a senzontle for pleasure. Those would be near the window or door for air. At night, the home is illuminated by firelight. They have torches of pine pitch or pottery oil lamps. Though oil was scarce, fat from animals could be used or pine resin. More commonly, they rely on the hearth's glow, and perhaps a few oak pine wood sticks to burn for light. As the family lies down to sleep on mats, the dim light flickers on the earthen walls, casting dancing shadows of the few furnishings and the hanging herbs. Family structure and roles. The family living in this home is a nuclear family, parents and children. But Aztec family structure often extends beyond that. They strongly value extended family ties and lineage. Our example family may also have an elderly grandparent living with them. If the grandfather can no longer work the fields, he might stay at home and do light tasks like carving spoons or watching the small children, imparting stories and wisdom. The grandmother might help grind corn or teach the grandkids songs. In Aztec society, elders are respected and often remain with family rather than living alone. The family is part of a larger Calpuli clan or ward, which is an extended kin group or community unit. The Calpuli holds land that the family farms, and often the houses of one Calpuli cluster together. Members of a Calpuli share a temple and school in their neighborhood and support each other. So while one house is a personal domain, many aspects of life, farming, ceremonies, defense are communal at the Calpuli level. Marriage in Aztec culture typically happens in the late teens or early 20s for men, and mid to late teens for women. Our father might have married at around age 20, our mother perhaps at 16. Marriages are usually arranged by families, especially among commoners. Matchmakers help pair young people from the same social class. The wedding involves ritual, tying the bride's blouse to the groom's cloak to symbolize union and a feast. Polygamy is officially allowed mainly for nobles. An emperor or nobleman might have multiple wives for alliances, but commoners are monogamous in almost all cases. Our family is monogamous, one husband, one wife. Divorce is relatively rare, but possible for irreconcilable issues, and remarriage is allowed, if a spouse dies, or even after divorce. But stable family units are the norm, held together by economic necessity and social expectation. Gender roles in the household are well defined, yet complementary. The father is generally responsible for work outside, farming, fishing, warfare, craft that is considered male, like stone carving or long-distance trading, if he were a merchant. The mother runs the domestic sphere, cooking, child-rearing, weaving, and any craft considered female, such as featherworking in some cases, or making ribbon and lace, brewing drinks, etc. They refer to the husband and wife as the two who keep the house, each with different duties, but equal in the sense of partnership. There's an Aztec saying that the man is the pillar of the house, and the woman is the heart of the house. Both are needed to hold it together. Children are cherished, but raised strictly. The Codex Mendoza shows lovingly how parents care for infants like precious jewels, but by age 4 or 5, they start instilling discipline and making the child do small chores. The father focuses on instructing the sons in farming, fishing, and when older, the basics of warfare or trade. The mother teaches the daughters to grind corn, weave, cook, and manage a household. They both tell stories and teach moral lessons through aphorisms and examples. The family is the first school for children until they attend formal school. More on that in the education section. Respect for elders and parents is deeply ingrained. Children speak politely and deferentially to their parents, using terms of reverence. If a child misbehaves or is lazy, the parents will not hesitate to correct them, initially with warnings, then with increasing punishments, like holding them over chilly smoke, or pricking with maguey thorns, as depicted in codices. This isn't done in cruelty, but as a culturally acceptable form of tough love, to ensure they grow into disciplined adults. Our family likely has had to scold the 12-year-old boy now and then if he shirked carrying firewood, or the girl if she played when she should have been grinding pepper. But also, the parents show love by providing for them and guiding them. In the evenings, they might hold the children and tell them the old stories of the Mexica travels, or sing lullabies about the rabbit in the moon. The household also includes pets and domesticated animals. As mentioned, they might have a few turkeys that the mother raises. Turkeys serve as a source of meat and eggs. Turkey eggs can be eaten. They might also have a treasured desolate skimly dog or two. These small nearly hairless dogs are kept by many families. They help keep the home clean of scraps, and might be fattened for ritual meals, though one could become attached to a dog as a pet too. The dogs curl up by the hearth at night, adding to the warmth. They also act as informal guards, barking at strangers or strange noises, though Aztec dogs are reportedly quite calm and not as barky as European breeds. In sum, the Aztec home is a lively, multi-purpose space, by day a workshop and kitchen, by night a dormitory, at all times a sanctuary for the family spirit. Despite the simplicity, there is a rhythm and coziness to it. Think of the red glow of the hearth on adobe walls, children giggling as they craft toys from corn husks, a cat, if they had them. More likely not, cats came with Spanish, or rather a dog, snoozing in the corner, father carefully carving a new wooden spindle for his wife by lamplight, mother humming a song as she weaves by the doorway where a moonbeam gives light. Outside, frogs croak and fireflies flicker near the canal. The house is humble, but it is filled with life and love, community and Kalpuli life. The family's home is also embedded in a community context. Each morning, as we saw, neighbors greet each other. Houses are clustered, often sharing walls or courtyards, which fosters a communal lifestyle. The children run freely between houses of relatives. If a mother needs to go out, she can leave her kids with her sister next door without worry. If a family has a bountiful meal, they share tamales with the neighbor. On the flip side, everyone knows everyone's business. Privacy is limited. The Kalpuli district leadership, often elders from the important families, assign land to each family for cultivation. Our father farms a piece of land, not owned by him individually, but given to him to use by virtue of belonging to this Kalpuli. In return, the family likely contributes tribute goods from that land, and participates in communal work projects, like maintaining the local temple, or cleaning the irrigation canals. The sense is that the family and community are tightly interwoven. If the father had to go on a military campaign or long trading journey, the extended family and neighbors step in to help the mother with heavy tasks like fieldwork. Likewise, if a neighbor is ill, our family will help them. This reciprocal support is how common people get by without wealth. Social bonds are their safety net. Festivals and ceremonies also blur the line between home and community. Many rituals begin in the home, like the household shrine offerings, but then continue in the community temple with everyone present. For example, during certain month festivals, families prepare food at home, then gather in the streets or temple courtyard for communal feasting, dancing, and offerings. The home is then decorated with flowers or paper flags for the festival, and open to visiting kin. By knowing the home life of our family, we understand that an Aztec commoner's identity is very much tied to place Kalpuli and people family clan. The home is literally called Kali, which also means family or household in Nahuatl. It's an extension of the concept of family. It's the physical heart of their existence. As evening falls in our narrative day, the family returns to this home, their sanctuary. The father comes back from the fields carrying baskets of fresh corn or vegetables. The mother has swept the yard and perhaps begun a little weaving before dusk. The children are playing with a homemade toy, maybe a clay figurine or a tiny straw doll. They will soon gather inside as night comes, light a torch or two, and perhaps share some stories or songs before bed. This brings us to how they spend their leisure and educate their young, which we shall explore next. Education and childhood. Growing up in the Aztec world. In the Aztec Empire, every child, boy or girl, noble or commoner, was educated in some manner. This was quite unusual for ancient civilizations. The Aztecs had a system of mandatory education that extended to all levels of society. They believed that properly instructing the next generation was a sacred duty of both parents and community. Education was not only about practical skills, but also moral training, religious knowledge, and preparation for adult roles. Let's accompany the children of our family, from infancy through youth, to see how they are lovingly shaped into contributing members of Aztec society. Early childhood at home. When an Aztec child is born, it is a momentous event, celebrated with ritual. A skilled midwife, Tulametlitlesitl, helps deliver the baby at home, and she performs the newborn's first bath and dedication. For a boy, the midwife gently washes him and announces that his destiny is to be a warrior, symbolically presenting him with tiny tools of war like a miniature bow and shield. For a girl, she says her path is to be a homemaker, giving her a small weaving shuttle or broom as a ceremonial gift. These miniatures are not toys so much as ritual tokens, often gifted at the naming ceremony. They illustrate how, from birth, gender roles and expectations are placed on children. The boy's umbilical cord might be buried on a battlefield or near a shield, the girl's near the hearth, symbolizing where each will find glory. As infants, children are doted on by their parents. Aztec parents use endearing terms like precious necklace, precious feather for their babies, reflecting how cherished they are. The mother breastfeeds the infant. Wet nursing was uncommon, except perhaps among nobles. Most mothers nurse their own. Weaning happens around age 2 or 3, often timed with the birth of another sibling. Once toddlers, discipline and training begin gently. By age 4, children are assigned small household chores to teach responsibility. For example, a 4-year-old boy might help carry lightweight items or gather small sticks for firewood. A girl of 4 might learn to tidy up her sleeping mat or fetch a little water in a tiny gourd. Parents correct them if they disobey. The Codex Mendoza famously illustrates stages of discipline. At age 6 or so, if a child is naughty or lazy, parents might scold them or give a light punishment, like pointing to the cold water outside, implying a threat of being splashed. By age 8-11, if disobedience continues, punishments escalate. A common one is making the child inhale the smoke of burning chili peppers as a form of tough correction. This was apparently done by throwing chili seeds on the fire and holding the misbehaving child over the acrid smoke. It causes intense coughing and tears, a memorable deterrent to bad behavior. Another method for around age 10-12 was pricking the child with maguey thorns, often on the skin of the back, to drive home the lesson. While this sounds harsh, Aztec parents believed too much coddling would spoil a child and make them fruitless trees. They genuinely loved their kids and used these punishments only if gentler guidance failed. By early teens, typically children were respectful and disciplined enough that such measures were no longer needed. Through these early years, the children also learn by imitation. The boy follows his father to the marketplace or fields and starts to pick up farming techniques, fishing methods, or craft skills just by watching. Perhaps our 12-year-old boy has already learned to use the digging stick and can plant seeds in a straight row. The girl shadows her mother at the hearth, learning how to knead dough or weave on a small loom. Many Aztec toys were didactic,
teaching tools like miniature weaving sets, tiny carrying slings, or little bows, as mentioned. So play often mimics adult work. But children also play for fun. They have dolls, clay figurines, spinning tops and games. Clay toys found by archaeologists include small whistles shaped like animals, toy animals on wheels. Though wheels were not used in transport, they appear on toys and miniature dishes. There's evidence Aztec kids played a game similar to marbles or jacks with dried fruit pits or small stones. They likely played tag, hide and seek, and engaged in pretend rituals, imitating temple ceremonies or warrior enactments, as children everywhere mimic what they see, where mimic what they see, where mimic what they see, where mimic.
The Telpokali, education for commoner boys. When children reach their teens, formal education outside the home kicks in. For our commoner family's son around age 15, he will start attending the Telpokali, which means House of Youth, mexicoler.co.uk. Each Kalpoli district has its own Telpokali school. This is essentially a public school for commoner boys, focusing on practical and military training as well as citizenship and ethics. Some sources indicate boys might attend part-time earlier, maybe from 10 or so for basic training, but full-time schooling typically starts by 15 mexicoler.co.uk. At the Telpokali, the instructors are veteran warriors and elders. The curriculum includes military training. The boys are taught use of weapons, mekwa hootwolden swords with obsidian blades, bows and arrows, spears, shields. At first they practice drills and learn to throw at elet ol spear thrower and sling stones. They build endurance by running long distances and doing exercises at dawn. History and religion. They memorize songs and poems about Aztec history, gods and moral lessons. Even commoner boys need to know the major prayers and stories since they will participate in ceremonies. They learn the timing and meaning of festivals, the names of past rulers and the tribe's migration legends. This is taught orally, often through songs and dances specifically tied to festivals so the youth can perform them. Civic duty and discipline. Life at Telpokali is disciplined. Boys often live at the school dormitory part of the time. Maybe not full-time for commoners, some might go home at night if nearby, but during training cycles they may sleep there on mats with their cohort. They wake early, sweep the school courtyard. Sweeping is always part of training, instilling humility, and bathe in cold water. They are fed simple meals. They learn obedience to their elders and to work as a team. Labor and crafts. The Telpokali also trains them in trades or labor that benefit the community. They might go on collective farming projects or help expand a canal. They could learn stone cutting, woodworking, or other crafts, especially if their father's a craftsman, to continue the trade. Some schools emphasize military, others more general. It varied by locale. Warrior ethos. The ultimate goal for boys is often to become a warrior for the city. By age 15, 18, they may accompany the army as porters or apprentices on campaigns. As recorded at 15, the boys began weapon training and would accompany seasoned warriors to battle to observe and assist but not fight yet. By about age 18, they can formally become warriors and fight, aiming to capture enemies, which is their path to honor. Our family's boy likely started going to Telpokali each evening or morning around age 15, and now at 12 he might already have some pre-training. He has been raised knowing he should aspire to capture a foe in battle, the mark of becoming an adult male with full rights like permission to wear certain hairstyles or ornaments. Not every commoner boy becomes a great warrior, some will become farmers or artisans primarily. But all are given basic military training so that the army has a deep reserve. Notably, the Telpokali is egalitarian. Commoner boys and even sons of some lower nobles train together. Valor, not birth, determines promotion in the military ranks for those in Telpokali, though high nobility send their sons to a different school, the Kalmykic, which we'll mention. The regime can be strict. There are accounts of how at Telpokali, if boys misbehaved, say they snuck out at night, they could be punished by being made to inhale chili smoke or by beatings, much like home discipline, but institutional. They were also expected to practice sexual abstinence until marriage. Premarital promiscuity was frowned upon, especially by age 20. Our boy will graduate by entering the ranks as a warrior or by taking up the adult work full-time with the skills he's acquired. The Telpo Kali thus serves somewhat like a mix of high school and boot camp, the Kalmeckic education for the elite and some exceptional commoners. While our family's children likely attend the neighborhood Telpo Kali boys or learn at home girls, it's worth noting the Kalmeckic, the other type of school, to complete the picture of Aztec education. The Kalmeckic is essentially the school for nobility and the gifted, often attached to temples. It provides a more intensive academic and religious education. Noble boys, sons of Pippleton, enter the Kalmeckic around age 6, 8 to start and stay perhaps until 18 or older. There they learn to read and write. Yes, they learn the Aztec pictographic writing system and perhaps to speak eloquently. Deep study of codices, religious rituals, priestly duties, astronomy, calendrics, and statesmanship. They endure rigorous training, including fasting, nighttime prayers, and more severe austerities to prepare them as future priests, judges, or military leaders. Some commoner boys of talent or special devotion could be admitted to Kalmeckic as well, though it's not common. If a commoner child showed exceptional promise, or if his parents dedicated him to temple service, sort of giving him as a young boy to the temple, he might train alongside nobles in Kalmeckic and potentially become a priest or officer. So there was some social mobility possible through education, albeit limited. Girls of noble families could also go to a sort of Kalmeckic for girls, often basically becoming a complex temple maidens where they train in ritual weaving, music and assisting priestesses, or become midwives and healers. Commoner girls did not typically go to formal school institutions. Instead, girls were educated at home by their mothers and older female relatives in all domestic arts. The codices show girls being taught to weave, grind corn, cook, and be moral and modest. There is mention that girls did learn songs, dances, and history as well, likely informally, or in special girls' classes in the community, or through participation in festival rehearsals. For instance, girls might be assembled to practice the ritual dances they would perform at certain ceremonies, learning the meaning of the rites in the process. Additionally, some girls, especially commoners, would be sent in their teens to serve in temples for a year or two as maidens of the temple. A bit like a boarding school. They maintained the temple, learned chants, and kept chastity during that term, then returned to secular life and usually got married. Our family's daughter at age 8 is still mostly under her mother's tutelage. By 12 or 13, her mother might bring her along to help more at the market stall, or to assist in big household tasks for the extended family, training her for her future role. She might be taught by an older female relative who is a midwife or craftswoman if one exists, to diversify her skills. One interesting aspect, mandatory education was codified. The state expected all children to attend either Telpo Kali or Kalmeckic by a certain age. This likely was enforced at the Kalpali level. Community elders made sure teenagers were at the schools. It ensured a somewhat uniform enculturation and loyalty to Aztec values. Daily life of children and youth. A day in a life of an Aztec youth would involve early chores, then schooling or work, then perhaps play or assisting family. For example, our 12-year-old boy might help his dad, then go to a morning session at the Telpo Kali drilling with older boys, break midday for the family meal, then perhaps do apprenticeship work in afternoon, like helping patch canals or carving simple tools, and in the evening, he might play ball with friends, or listen to elders' stories. The 8-year-old girl helps mom in morning, maybe has a bit of free time to play with her friends. Games with dolls or pretending to grind Play-Doh maze. In the afternoon, she sits with mom learning embroidery. And at night she hears the traditional stories and sings songs taught by her parents by the fireside. Aztecs had a rich oral storytelling tradition. Kids learned the legends of Quetzalcoatl, Tezcatlipoca, the hero twins, etc., often as moral tales. We should mention games and entertainment for kids briefly. Patali, a gambling board game, is more for adults, but older teens might start learning it for fun. Ulamalistli, the ball game, was more serious and often played by professionals. But kids would play mock versions in the streets with rubber balls, trying to bounce the ball off hips or through makeshift rings. There's evidence of a game where children had reed hoops and would throw spears through them, like target practice. They also enjoyed music and dance. Children learned to play small drums or flutes, and during festivals, child performers had roles. Some festivals had groups of children dance in costume. Aztec children also had ritualized events in their lives. At about age 14, a boy had the Itanakoa ceremony, where his hair, which had been kept somewhat uncut with a lock grown long since childhood, would be cut except for a warrior's lock, signifying he is now an adolescent ready to capture enemies, or else he must keep that embarrassing lock until he does. For girls, there was a coming of age where they learned to put on the adult skirt and hoopeel properly, signifying readiness for womanhood and marriage. In adolescence, gender segregation increases. Boys spend more time with male peers at school or in warrior groups, while girls spend time with mothers and other women preparing for marriage. Friendships form with the same sex mainly, though there were also young love stories. There's an Aztec poem of a young man serenading a girl. Courtship was conservative. Often families arranged marriages, but young people did have some agency. If they fell in love, they might elope in some cases, or convince a matchmaker. By late teens, most girls marry and leave home to live with their husband, often in the same kaupali, though not far. Boys either marry by early 20s or continue to distinguish themselves in war or trade. If our son becomes a successful warrior capturing prisoners, he could rise in status even as a commoner, possibly being given one of the orders like Jaguar or Eagle Knight if he captures 4 enemies. That would let him wear distinctive warrior garb and gain respect, though still not noble unless very exceptional service. Overall, Aztec childhood is a mix of care and discipline, work and play, all suffused with cultural education. They grow up fast by our standards, responsible by early teens. Yet, one imagines there was much laughter and fun among kids, swimming in canals, racing each other, festivals where they eat treats like alegria, amaranth candy, and watch dramatic performances. Childhood was valued. The Aztecs even had a deity, Tlazolteotl, who among other things was the patron of midwives and newborns, and Huhucoyotl, the old coyote god, who presides somewhat over games and mischief. By raising their children in this structured yet rich environment, the Aztecs ensured cultural continuity. The children of our family will carry on the way of life we're describing, farming the chinampas, honoring the gods, cleaning their homes, raising their own children, thus perpetuating the Aztec world at least until the great upheaval of the Spanish conquest, which is beyond our current scope. Now, having seen how the Aztecs nurture their young and prepare them for adulthood, let's explore how religion and ritual are woven through everyday life. As much of what children and adults learn is oriented toward pleasing the gods and maintaining cosmic order. Religion and ritual in daily life, the sacred and the ordinary. For the people of the Aztec Empire, religion is not a separate part of life. It is interwoven into every day, every task, every decision. The Aztecs are deeply spiritual and polytheistic, worshipping a complex pantheon of gods who govern nature, time, and human activities. An average person might not be a priest conducting great temple ceremonies, but they still perform small rituals at home, observe taboos and auspicious days, and participate in larger festivals regularly. Their worldview is such that the mundane and the sacred are one continuum. As we go through an ordinary day, we will see numerous little actions that have religious meaning, and at certain times of the year or month, the daily routine gives way to communal ritual events. Household devotions each morning. As we saw, the father offered a bit of copal incense at the family hearth, and perhaps recited a short prayer as the sun rose. Such household devotions are common. The hearth fire itself is sacred, associated with the god of fire Xiaotecutli and the hearth goddess Chantico. When a new home is built or a marriage begins, they light a new fire in the hearth with prayers. Every day when the mother lights the cooking fire, in a sense, it's a tiny renewal of the world, a belief that resonates with the grander new fire ceremony, a ritual every 52 years. She might quietly speak to the fire, "May you burn well and cook our food. May you carry our offerings to the gods." In the corner shrine of the house, typical images might include figurines of fertility, or rain gods like Talalak rain bringer, or Shikomekoat, maize goddess, since a farming family prays for good rains and harvest. They might also have a figurine of Huitzilopochtli, tribal patron, though he's more a state god. Commoners still honored him, especially in Tenochtitlan, or perhaps a lesser-known hearth god. They could have small paper banners or amulets hanging there too. Each day, or at least each market week 5 days, the family offers something at the shrine, if nothing else, a bit of copal or a little food offering. For instance, after cooking, the mother might toss a piece of tortilla, or sprinkle a few drops of atol into the fire, or on the ground, saying "for the gods," or "for the earth." These actions acknowledge that humans must give back a portion of what they consume. It is both piety and a form of spiritual insurance that the cycle of sustenance continues. The Aztecs also commonly offer their own blood in small quantities, as everyday devotion, especially priests and pious individuals. A commoner might occasionally, perhaps on a calendrical holy day, or if he's particularly devout, perform auto-sacrifice, pricking his ear or calf with a maguey thorn and letting a few drops of blood fall onto paper, then burning that paper as an offering. Not everyone does this daily, but it's part of the culture that personal sacrifice feeds the gods. Women too could prick their tongues or earlobes for a small blood offering. However, these acts are more typically done in temples. At home, incense, food, flowers, and prayer are the main offerings. Even chores have ritual aspects. We mentioned how sweeping the house in the morning was not just cleaning but symbolically sweeping out evil or disorder. The deity Tlazolteotl is associated with both filth and purification. One of her aspects is the goddess of dirt, and by extension the cleaner of it. So a woman sweeping could be seen as a devotee of Tlazolteotl, making the home pure. They even had a special festival month, Ok Panistali, the sweeping where women swept the streets, and a ritual of cleansing was done to refresh the earth. When the family sits to eat, they often toss a small bit of food into the fire, or ground as a gesture to the household spirits. And when they drink water, they might flick a few drops in honor of Chelteotl, goddess of water. These habits are akin to saying grace, or making libations in other cultures. They also constantly read omens and signs. For instance, if an owl hoots at night near their house, they might feel uneasy. Owls are ill portents linked to death, or the god of death. If a particular day in the ritual 260-day calendar, Tonal Pohali, is unlucky for some activity, they may postpone it. The Aztecs all know their birthday sign, which was determined in the 260-day cycle, and many believe it influences personality and fate, somewhat like astrology. If our family needed to plan a journey or a marriage, they might consult a tonal pulk diviner, who using calendar books would advise on a propitious date, or if the day is good or bad. For daily tasks, they probably don't always consult the calendar, but for anything significant, planting the first seeds of the season, a building project, a baby's naming, they will. Therefore, religion quietly steers daily decisions. Maybe the father waits 2 days to plant, because the priest said the signs will be better under the day sign. 3 rain than today, 1 dog,
etc. Or the mother might refrain from weaving on a certain day that is considered bad for women's work. The religious calendar and monthly festivals. The Aztec Sikhut solar year has 18 months of 20 days each, plus 5 extra nameless days. Each month, Vaintina has its own major festival dedicated to specific deities. These are times when daily life is partially put on hold for communal religious activities. Let's illustrate some of these to show how a commoner participates across the year. At Lakaholo, around February. Festival, to beg rain. Commoners make offerings to Tulaluk and other rain deities. In this period, particularly grimly, children were sometimes sacrificed to bring rain. The belief was their tears would induce rain. An average parent might not be directly involved in that sacrifice, which was done by priests on mountain tops, but they would certainly bring flowers, food, and figurines to local Tulaluk shrines and pray for water for their fields. They might fast or abstain from salt for a while as part of the ritual cycle. They also decorate their fields with little paper flags to honor the earth. Tula Kasaperulistala, March, festival of Asipe Totek, the flayed god of spring and agriculture. This one involved gladiatorial sacrifices and the wearing of flayed skins by impersonators of the god. A commoner might witness some of these events in the main temple plaza, or at least in the Kalpuli temple. They would likely contribute tamales and maize cakes to the feast portion, and watch the ritual dances. There's dance of the flayed ones, etc. It was also a time to start planting. They dedicate the first sowing to Sipi. Tozo's Tali April, a quieter festival, where they bury offerings of food for Mother Earth, and remember the dead children. Families in their fields might bury a bit of corn dough, or a small idol in the soil, as offering. Also they observe abstinence from certain foods for 20 days. Yui Tozo's Lei, May, offerings to Senti Altal corn god, and Chikon Kotal, corn goddess, as the corn starts growing. Commoners bring the first green ears of corn to temples to be blessed or offered. They also host family feasts with tamales and atol for the corn goddess, asking for a good harvest. Tox cattle, around May-June, dedicated to Tezcatl Polka, the smoky mirror, a high god. This is the one with the famous story of the young man impersonating Tezcatl Polka for a year, who is then sacrificed. Commoners participate by feasting and dancing on the appointed day, and many abstain from work to attend the ceremony. Our family would likely go to the Kalpuli temple to see the procession of the Tezcatl Polka impersonator, and later partake in the distribution of blessed foods. Etzel Koli's Lei, June, festival for the water god and his consort, often included a community-wide cleaning of canals and ritual fishing. Families might eat a special dish called etzali, maize cooked with beans, perhaps in honor of this festival, and fishermen commoners would offer some of their catch. Tekwiyu Tali and Yui Tekwiyu Tuljolis Layalk, the Feast of Lords, often associated with Soki Pili flower prints and Zelanan young corn. People, even commoners, dress up in their best, wear flowers. That's why one is also called Mikayu Tali Feast of the Flowers. They make cornmeal statues of the gods, and then break and eat them, a sort of communion with the deity. A common family likely prepared a large tamale representing Zelanan, the maize goddess, and then all ate it after a small ritual. This festival also had voluntary bloodletting. Even commoners might draw a bit of blood in private devotion. Tulak Soki Mako, August, the flower distribution, when flowers are offered to statues. Families gather wild flowers and decorate every shrine. Children help string garlands. It's a joyful, non-bloody celebration, a thanksgiving for general bounty. Vetso Kol Yud Si Sept, the great fall of fruit, or the festival of the pole and fire. A tall tree is erected and youths compete to climb it, while below a fire is lit, symbolizing the descent of the planet Venus perhaps. Commoners enjoy this as a spectacle. Young men from Tel Pol Kali show off their agility. Families prepare cactus fruit drinks and watch the event, somewhat akin to a fair. Alki Paned Slay Sept, sweeping of the road festival, for Tolis, Toli Settle, Layu Toliu Toli Settle. Women play a prominent role, sweeping streets, and a ritual war game is held. A virgin impersonating the goddess is sacrificed and flayed, her skin worn by a priestess. In the home, this is a time of major cleaning. They sweep and repair their house, sprinkle perfumed water, and possibly avoid making a mess for those 20 days. Our mother would have been out with other women sweeping paths and scattering flowers. They also might repaint the house walls or renew household items as a symbol of renewal of the earth. Tali Settle, Ulk, arrival of the gods, back from an absence. It's a smaller ritual where each household welcomes the gods home with offerings of food and incense in their patio at night, with little bonfires. The family would definitely participate. At midnight, on a certain date, they lay out tiny food offerings and burn incense, saying, "Welcome back, gods, rest in our home." Tepayu Tali Settle, mountain gods feast, praying for rain mountains. Villagers might climb local hills to offer kopal. Commoners also fashion little dough images of mountain and rain deities to offer. Kolkoli Settle, Nuf, dedicated to Mix Koltal, the hunt. Commoners who are hunters celebrate by hunting game and offering some to the fire. Perhaps our father goes on a community hunt for deer. Also, warriors get some focus. They dance in their military outfits. The Tel Pol Kali youths likely take part. So our teenage son could be in a procession carrying weapons. Panquetzalistal, late Novdek, raising of banners, main feast of Yud-Sil-Polkli. This is one of the grandest ceremonies in Tenochtitlan. The entire city is abuzz with preparation. New banners and flags are raised on the temple, and a large figure of Yud-Sil-Polkli is made of amaranth dough, then ritually killed and eaten. Commoners play big roles. Each Kalpoli contributes food, dancers, etc. Our family would have fasted perhaps for a day before. Then on the feast day they go to watch the ritual procession of warriors, see the captives sacrificed at the great temple, if they have the stomach for it. Many would attend these events as it was religious duty. After there is much feasting and dancing citywide. Families host relatives, drink a bit of pulque in moderation, and thank Yud-Sil-Polkli for past victories. It's like a combination of religious fervor and patriotic celebration. Atamustali, Dek, Descent of Waters, a smaller rain festival. People make little figurines of telk with corn stalks and set them in water jars, asking the rains to soon return, since December is dry season. Taitetl, Jan, mid-dry season, a festival for old deities, perhaps a bit like a winter solstice, though their year didn't align exactly with ours. Families might particularly honor Chantiko or ancestors now. There's community dancing with elderly impersonators of gods. Is Kali, late Jan, the final month of the 18, dedicated to Sitekali, fire god. Every household does a renewal of the hearth. They clean out the old ashes and relight the fire anew, offering aromatic herbs. They also perform ritual baths in the Temescal as purification. On the festival day, people may hold torches and parade, and all old fires in the temples are extinguished then rekindled. Commoners relish the huge bonfire in the temple, and often carry a bit of that new fire back home to light their own hearth, symbolizing unity with the sacred flame. It's a time of starting fresh. After these 18 months came the Niman Temi, 5 empty days, considered unlucky. People mostly stay home, avoid doing anything important. They rest and avoid travel, since those days are not under a month's protection. They tidy up, maybe quietly reflect, but do minimal work. Once those pass, the new year starts with Atlacalhual again, and the cycle goes on. From this cycle, it's evident that nearly every month there was some festival or ritual, and commoners were active participants. These festivals broke the monotony of work, but also demanded labor, preparing costumes, food offerings, cleaning temples, etc. It created a strong rhythm to the year. The effect on daily life is significant. Some days you don't work because it's a feast. Other days you have special tasks like collecting flowers or fasting. The religious calendar thus dictates the seasonal and annual rhythms, which we will discuss more in the next section. More in the next section. More in the next section. More in the next section.
Community and temple rituals. Our narrative family, living in Tenochtitlan, is close to the heart of state religion. The Templo Mayor, Great Temple, is in their city. While not everyone can crowd into the temple precinct, many events are public or broadcast via drums and conch horns to all. For example, at dawn of a sacrifice day, they will hear the booming drum huhuv from atop the temple that can be heard for miles, and they know some great offering is happening. Many will go to the central plaza to watch from designated areas. It's not gruesome voyeurism to them, but a pious duty and a communal affirmation of faith. When captives' hearts are offered to the sun, people cheer or pray because they believe it ensures the sun's journey and world's renewal. Our commoner family, especially the father and son, might have attended such rites during Panquetzalistal or Telixipahalist. The mother and daughter might attend some, or sometimes remain at the Kalpuli shrine with local ceremonies, if big temple is too crowded or if certain ceremonies are male-focused. There are also smaller local ceremonies often. Each Kalpuli ward has its own Teocalli temple with patron gods, often a version of a major deity, or a minor one specifically for that craft or area. The family likely goes there frequently, perhaps weekly or on market days, to leave offerings. The Kalpuli also probably has a volunteer neighborhood priest or priestess, could be an older respected person who assists official priests on festival days. These local temples are where commoners might have more direct involvement, like playing roles in community dances, or little dramas enacted during festivals. Finally, religion enters daily life in myriad folk beliefs. If someone falls ill, they might suspect a supernatural cause like the spirit of a drowned person water has gotten him, or witchcraft. They will call a Tisital healer, who may perform a ritual, rubbing the patient with eggs or incense, and quietly praying to transfer sickness to an object, then dispose of it. If a baby is sickly, the midwife might do a ritual calling its soul back if they think it was frightened away by a sudden scare. These are part of daily life too, bridging medicine and magic. Even leisure often had a religious tinge. The ball game played in formal courts, Gilamalistal was a sport, but also a sacred ritual symbolizing cosmic forces. Commoners might go watch ball games like we watch football, but they also know it's an enactment of night versus day or life versus death. Gambling on the ball game or on Patoli was technically under the patronage of Macuelgsochil, god of games, to whom gamblers offered incense before playing. In summary, the Aztecs' daily world is thoroughly infused with the sacred. They live in a cosmos where gods and spirits are everywhere. In the corn they plant, the water they drink, the mountains around them, the stars above. Everything requires an exchange. Do you days I give that you may give. Humans give offerings. Gods give blessings like rain and sun. This reciprocal relationship is renewed in small ways each day and in grand ways each year. By following these practices, the average Aztec person feels secure that they are doing their part to keep the universe in balance. As night falls on our family's day, they likely end with another prayer. Perhaps the father looks at the night sky, sees the bright star Venus, the evening star, and says a short thank you to Quetzalcoatl, as Venus or to the North Star. Before sleeping, some families burn a last piece of copal or sage to ward off malevolent forces in the dark. Then they trust the gods to watch over them until dawn. And indeed, in Aztec belief, the gods fight every night to ensure the sun rises again. Particularly Tonata needs strength from human hearts to rise. So with faith they close their eyes, knowing they have honored the deities today, and hopeful the sun will return at dawn. With daily devotions covered, in the next section, we'll look at something more worldly yet still important to daily life: the bustling markets and trade that connect families with the goods they need, and provide a social hub of economic life. Markets and trade, the bustling heart of the city. On a typical day, one of the most lively experiences an Aztec commoner might have is a trip to the market Tanguis. Markets are vital to Aztec daily life, not only for obtaining food and goods that one doesn't produce at home, but also as a social center where news is exchanged, alliances formed, entertainment enjoyed, and the diversity of the empire put on display. The Aztec economy is a mix of subsistence and commerce. Families grow or make many things themselves, but there are always items that must be traded for. The Aztecs do not have coinage, though they use some items as currency, like cacao beans and cotton cloth, so their markets are partly barter-based and partly operate with those proto-currencies. Let's wander into a marketplace with our family and observe the sights, sounds, and transactions. The local market and the great market. There are different scales of markets. Each city or large town typically has a main market square. Smaller villages might have market days periodically. The Aztec calendar's 5-day week, called a quintinas, by some scholars often scheduled market every 5 days in regional towns, such that major markets in an area rotated so they didn't conflict. However, the largest cities like Tlatelolco, Tenochtitlan's sister city, had daily markets, with especially big crowds on every 5th day. Our family lives in Tenochtitlan, which uniquely had a vast market at Tlatelolco that functioned daily. Each morning, hundreds of canoes laden with produce arrive at the market docks, and thousands of people stream in from surrounding areas. Cortés noted that on some days 60,000 people might gather at Tlatelolco market. Even if that's an overestimate, it was huge, comparable to a major stadium crowd today, happening regularly. For perspective, Bernal Diaz wrote, "We were astounded at the number of people and the quantity of merchandise. We had never seen such a thing before." Our family's Calpoli likely has a smaller neighborhood market for basics. Perhaps every 5 days they sell excess produce there, or buy small items. But for major shopping, they go to Tlatelolco's Grand Market. Let's imagine it's a market day, and the mother and daughter are heading there with a basket of goods to trade. Maybe surplus avocados from their tree, some woven mats she made, and a few clay griddles the father's brother crafted. The father and son might also go to carry heavier loads, or to look for tools. It's common for families to make a trip together, partly business, partly social outing. Approaching the market, the family enters a vast open square lined with stalls of reed mats on the ground, or simple awnings. There is a buzz of noise, people bargaining, calling out their wares, chatting, the sound of shuffling feet, and the occasional shout of a porter carrying a large load trying to clear a path. The air carries mixed aromas: dried chilies, fresh flowers, copal incense from a nearby shrine, human sweat in a crowd. This large, even mostly clean people create a hum of body odor. And food. Lots of food being cooked and sold. If it's near midday, perhaps the smell of atole and tamales being sold for lunch drifts by. Every type of merchandise imaginable is found here. The market is highly organized by section. Bernal Diaz noted that each kind of merchandise had its own area so well ordered that an official could easily regulate it. As our family walks through, they pass the fruit and vegetable section. Piles of maize, beans, squash, tomatoes, onions, tunas, prickly pear fruits, chayote gourds, and more. Sellers have their produce heaped on patate mats in tidy arrangements. The mother compares some chili peppers. She wants a certain kind, perhaps smoked chipotle for a stew. Next they see the textiles section, stalls displaying cotton cloaks, quachli, loincloths, skirts and raw-dyed cotton thread. The daughter's eyes widen at brightly colored cloth, though they can't afford the fanciest ones. They weave past rows of pottery, sturdy kummels, water jugs, cooking pots, some plain, some with painted designs. The father examines a new metate grinding stone, because their old one has a crack. Stone tools and obsidian knives are sold in one area. Here, skilled merchants from places like Texcoco or Otumba bring finely flaked obsidian blades and drills. The father picks up an obsidian knife, its edge razor sharp. Tools like axes with stone heads, woodworking chisels, and farming hoe blades are laid out too. They next cross into the more exotic goods zone, feathers and jewelry. Here are long poles hung with brilliant feathers of quetzal, heron, and parrot. There are feather mosaics and fans for the nobles. Our commoners only admire these, likely not buying. Nearby sit metal smiths, selling copper axes, gold ornaments, silver beads. The Aztecs don't smelt iron, but they have bronze copper alloy tools and precious metals for adornment. If one needs a razor, they might buy a set of obsidian blades rather than metal, since obsidian is plentiful and actually sharper. Continuing, the family smells the section before they see it. Herbs and medicines, piles of medicinal plants, tobacco, roots and aromatic resins. A healer is grinding some herbs and advertising a remedy for fevers. The mother remembers she needs copal incense. She heads to the vendor who has chunks of pine resin and copal in a basket, and likely uses cacao beans. To pay copal might cost a bean or two for a small bag. Yes, cacao beans serve as small change currency here. Our family has perhaps a small pouch of cacao beans, saved not to eat but to spend. They might also carry a few lengths of woven cotton cloth, called quachli, which is a higher denomination currency. Historical sources note that one quachli, cotton cloak, could be worth 65–300 cacao beans depending on quality. Commoners seldom trade quachli, unless they are selling bulk goods. It's more for bigger deals. Food stalls and refreshments are abundant. After some buying and selling, maybe the daughter tugs on her mother's skirt, begging for a snack. They go to a woman selling fresh tortillas with beans or tamales stuffed with amaranth greens. For a few cacao beans, they get a hot maize cake and a gourd of talix calatoli, a kind of savory gruel. The father might indulge in a foam-topped cup of cacao beverage, not the richest chocolate used by nobles, but a lightly cacao-flavored atole, which in the market might cost, say, 5 cacao beans. They sit on a mat in the designated eating area and enjoy people watching. They see a group of long-distance merchants, the Pachteca, arriving with their caravan. These merchants are like the trucks of the empire, bringing in things from afar: turquoise from the far north, cacao from the Maya lands in the south, quetzal feathers from the cloud forests, jaguar pelts, amber, jade. When such exotic goods come in, people gather to see. At a stall, a merchant displays red dye cakes, cochineal and henequen rope from Yucatan. Another has a caged macaw squawking, likely destined for a noble's aviary. The daughter is amazed at the bright bird. The market also trades in slaves, talicoli, people sold for debt or war captives, destined to be servants or sacrifices. Indeed, Diaz mentions Sestin Indian slaves, both men and women, as many brought to market as the Portuguese bring Negroes from Guinea. Our family might skirt that area, not particularly interested in buying slaves. Most commoners couldn't afford one, and slaves are usually purchased by wealthy who need labor or sacrifice offerings. But they aren't shocked by it. It's an accepted part of commerce. A unique section is the animal products: deer hides, jaguar pelts, wild game. Cortés listed skins of tigers, jaguars, and lions, pumas, of otters and jackals, deer and other animals, some tanned, others raw. Hunters from forests trade here. One might see rabbit carcasses or strings of fish and ducks on sale. Fish especially, since the lakes yield much fresh fish, as well as preserved pescado seco, dried fish or axolotl, salamanders, dried on sticks. Then there's the section for wooden goods, baskets, mats, furniture, like reed mats, low stools, canoes, even small dugouts can be bought or ordered. Also clay bricks, lime, and building materials in one corner for those building a home. The layout is overseen by officials. The Aztecs appoint market supervisors, tangues pan teleyacatel, who patrol to prevent cheating and theft. If someone is caught stealing in the market, punishments are swift and public, possibly execution, as laws were strict about market theft. Disputes over prices can be taken to a market court, often right on site. It's said judges sat in the market to settle disagreements. This ensures fairness in trade. The Aztec market doesn't use haggling as wildly as some markets do, because many prices are customary, like a standard rate of 20 cacao beans for a small rabbit, or 5 cacao for 20 avocados, etc. But there is some bargaining in bulk deals. Our family sells their goods too. The mother finds a potter who will trade her some new bowls in exchange for the woven mats she brought. She also trades their surplus avocados for a bundle of yarn she needs to weave new clothes. For any shortfall or leftover items, she might accept cacao beans. By midday, their errands are done. They carry home new pottery, salt, incense, and maybe a small luxury. The mother got a couple of cochineal dyed cotton threads to add a red stripe to the huipil she's weaving, as a treat. As they leave, they pass by entertainers, perhaps a storyteller drawing a crowd, or a juggler, or acrobat performing in a corner. Markets often had such entertainments, including musicians or clowns. Yes, Aztecs had clowns, jesters for humor. The kids beg to watch a puppet show of some god's myth. The mother allows a few minutes. They laugh as a performer with a clay flute mimics bird calls, and another dressed in a comical costume pretends to be a Spaniard. Just kidding, no Spaniards yet in daily life scenario. Actually, historically there were no Spaniard characters yet, but they had impersonators of animals, or of rival tribes in comedic skits perhaps. Communication. The market is where news from all over the empire travels. Our father might hear from a traveling merchant that there's war in Michoacan, or the Tlaxcalans have raided a caravan, or news of omens, etc. People exchange gossip. Did you hear the emperor may build a new aqueduct, or so-and-so's daughter is to marry a noble in Texcoco? In a society without newspapers, the marketplace is the news hub. For commoners like our family, the market is also an avenue of social mobility. If they are clever, they could do well in trade and accumulate wealth. Some commoners become paktika merchants themselves if they develop skills and capital. It's rare, but possible to rise above one's birth through trade success. Our family likely isn't aiming for that, but they certainly appreciate that in Tlatelolco market, a humble farmer stands shoulder to shoulder with wealthy merchants and even nobles incognito. Nobles often went disguised or at least without too much pomp to markets to avoid driving up prices. Currencies. Let's note known equivalents. 1 turkey hen = about 100 cacao. A tamale = 1 cacao. A small rabbit = 30 cacao. Large tomato = maybe a few for 1 cacao, etc. They also used kwakli cotton cloaks as larger currency. There were grades of kwakli, a common one worth say 65, 80 cacao, a fine one, 100 cacao, top quality, up to 300 cacao. So if a commoner sold a lot of produce, they might get paid in cloaks. But cloaks can be bulky, so often they might just invest in something. At day's end, as they leave the market, the family likely stops by the public water station to wash hands and feet, a courtesy, since they've been touching many things, especially with the concern of not offending gods by handling food with dirty hands. Tlatelolco had a water canal and fountain at the market. Perhaps they also passed the sector where human sacrifice victims, slaves, destined for sacrifice are displayed for sale, if any such were happening. A grim reminder of religious duties behind trade. The family heads home satisfied. They've traded what they needed and also enjoyed an outing. Markets occur so regularly that it's a routine part of life. The mother might go every 5 days at least for fresh ingredients, like salt or spices. The father might go more rarely, maybe to sell harvested surplus after the harvest season. By participating in the marketplace, the family is not isolated. They are part of a larger regional economy that ties the empire together. The availability of goods from far-off lands in the market is a tangible sign of the empire's reach and the tribute system that funnels exotic items to the capital. Tribute items, like piles of cacao, cotton, or warrior costumes from conquered provinces, often get resold in the markets as well, meaning even commoners indirectly benefit from imperial conquests by access to new goods. After discussing the serious business of commerce, let's unwind a bit. With the goods acquired and the day's work done, the family can indulge in some entertainment and leisure, which we'll explore next. Entertainment and leisure, music, dance, and games, at day's end. Even in a hard-working society like the Aztecs, people find time for relaxation and recreation. In fact, leisure often blends with ritual, as many of their fun activities also have cultural significance. Still, the average person certainly experiences joy, humor, and play in daily life. As the sun sets and the air cools, families often come together to talk. Children play in the courtyard, and adults might entertain themselves with stories, music, or games. Additionally, on festival days or special occasions, there is more elaborate communal entertainment like dances, ball games, and feasts. Let's explore how our Aztec family might spend their free time in a calm and soothing manner. Next section, storytelling and family time. One of the simplest forms of leisure is storytelling. After dinner, as twilight deepens, the family might sit outside their home or around the hearth. The grandfather, if present, or the father, can recount old legends. Perhaps he tells the children the tale of the 5 sons, how the world has been created and destroyed 4 times before, and now we live under the 5th sun, which must be fed with blood to keep shining. He uses a gentle rhythmic voice, describing the bravery of the gods and the creation of humans from ground bones mixed with blood. The children listen, rapt, these cosmological stories, both educating and enchanting them. Or the mother might tell a more light-hearted fable, like how the opossum got its bare tail, or why the rabbit in the moon appears. A known Aztec tale of how a god threw a rabbit into the moon to dim its brightness, hence seeing a rabbit's silhouette on the moon. Such stories delight the little ones and impart cultural lore. Aztecs also loved proverbs, huhutlatoli, wise sayings of the elders. During relaxed moments, an elder might throw out a proverb about life, and everyone discusses its meaning. For example, the immature maize stalk pushes eagerly upward, but wait until it bears fruit. A way of saying youth are impatient, but maturity takes time. These aphorisms are a common social seasoning in conversation, reinforcing values in a gentle way. Music and dance music pervades Aztec life, from the grand temple drums to the humble ocarina, clay flute. A child might blow. In the evening, one might hear distant temple drums, but at home, people make their own small music. Common instruments, the huhutal upright drum and tepanastli horizontal slit drum, are big instruments, usually played in ceremonies. But trained drummers, small versions or simpler drums, might be used at home. Perhaps our father has a little skin drum,
he can tap on while singing. Flutes and whistles. Many commoners have clay flutes, either the straight flute, which can play melodies, or ocarinas, round whistles, shaped like animals. The sun may have a flute, and might practice simple tunes in the calm night. Flutes can mimic bird calls, or play haunting tunes. Their music is said to often be pentatonic and soulful. Rattles, iacocally made of gourds, filled with beads, or shell anklets for dance, are readily available. In a casual gathering, someone might shake a rattle to keep rhythm, as others clap along. Singing is a favorite pastime. The Aztecs have a rich tradition of poetry songs, crackle, including formal ones performed by trained singers, and more casual ones folks might hum. A farmer might have a working song. A mother might sing a lullaby, like soothing chants to Tezcatli, polka to guard the baby's sleep, and youths have love songs. In calm hours, an older member might sing an ancient song about the glory of a past ruler, or a melancholy song about the brevity of life, as Aztec poetry often muses. We only come to dream, we only come to bloom, our flowers wither, a philosophical sentiment. During festivals, dance is the great communal entertainment. Every Kalpoli prepares group dances in costume. By night of festival, the plaza is filled with circles of dancers, moving to drum rhythms, stamping feet, rattling shells, forming patterns. It is religious but also joyous. Even when not a festival, youths might practice dances for fun. Perhaps our teen boy and girl join neighbor kids to practice a Mexica dance in the courtyard, one playing a beat on a hollow log, while others move in sync, repeating learned steps. For the average evening though, entertainment is quieter, singing around the hearth, telling jokes. Yes, jokes and humor exist. Aztecs had professional clowns, huhu at courts, and likely a folk sense of humor about everyday foibles. The father might tease his wife with a gentle joke about how her tortillas are so good, they must have been made by the corn goddess herself, an indirect compliment with a myth twist. Or he might play a harmless prank on the kids, like hiding a piece of cacao then feigning that a house spirit took it. Such little jests amuse families. Games and gambling games are a popular way to spend leisure time, and the Aztecs are fond of gambling. Though there were rules, commoners could gamble moderately, but not ruin themselves, and young people were cautioned about excessive gambling. One well-known game is Patoli, often called the Aztec gambling game. Patoli is played on a cloth mat, painted with a cross-shaped board, like an X shape. Players have pebbles, or beans, as tokens, and toss 5 bean dice, marked with holes on one side, to move them. It's somewhat like a race game, similar to Ludo, or Pachisi in concept. The excitement is in wagering. People bet items like blankets, cacao beans, ornaments, or food on the game. Even Moctezuma enjoyed watching Patoli games. Picture our father and a neighbor squatting under a lamplight in the evening, a Patoli mat between them. They gamble a little, maybe a small string of cacao beans each, nothing too high stakes, just fun. One sings a short invocation to Makwul god of games, before starting, to curry luck. They toss the beans, and move their tokens, taunting each other in good nature. The wives watch while weaving or sewing, occasionally laughing when someone rolls badly. It's slow and relaxing, with bursts of anticipation each turn. Possibly, they nibble toasted pumpkin seeds as they play, like we might munch snacks. Another game is Tawakli, the ball game. However, that's not a casual game. It's played in ball courts, with teams, more like a spectator sport for commoners. Commoners in a town might form teams though, and people definitely gather to watch ball games. It's strenuous, and often had ritual aspects. Sometimes losers could be sacrificed in big ritual games. But also it's thrilling sport. Players trying to hit a rubber ball through a high stone ring using only hips and elbows. Spectators would gamble on the outcomes. Our family's father might occasionally take the son to watch a ball game at a local court, maybe betting a few cacao on his favorite team. He likely doesn't play. That's for younger, very fit men or professionals. For children, simpler toys and games. The kids may play hide and seek among houses, or do make-believe games. For example, pretend to be merchants selling pebbles as cacao. They have toys like marbles, little stones to flick into a hole, or they play capture the flag type running games, mimicking warrior exploits, with no real violence, just tagging. There's evidence of spinning tops too, likely wooden or clay tops. Kids would spin and compete, who spins longest. At times, communities host poetry, recitals, or dramatic performances. Nezahualcoyotl of Texcoco famously held poetry contests. In a Calpoli, maybe on a rest day, a few folks with good memory recite epic poems or verses of song, either for a small prize or just honor. People gather to listen, which is a form of refined entertainment. Refined entertainment. Refined entertainment. Refined entertainment.
A day of work, farming, trading, and crafting. By midday, the mother had finished her morning's domestic work and planned to head to the marketplace with her daughter. She packed a basket of surplus avocados and some woven reed mats she'd made to trade. Before leaving, she took a moment to tidy herself. Though a commoner, she maintained cleanliness and neat dress. She combed her long black hair and wrapped it into 2 coils above her ears, securing them with a woven band, the traditional style for a married woman. Her clothing was simple, a cotton blouse, hoople, and a wraparound skirt. It was not fancy. Commoner women wore rough magui fiber cloth for every day, but it was well kept and freshly washed. Aztecs took personal hygiene seriously. Even common folk bathed often and used natural soaps from plant. This woman had likely enjoyed a steam bath in the family's Temescal sweat lodge recently, cleansing her skin thoroughly. She certainly smelled of fragrant copal soap and fresh maize dough, a wholesome, comforting scent. She also donned a shawl rebozo loosely over her head, partly for modesty, partly to shield from sun. Hand in hand with her daughter, she walked to the market of Tlatelolco, just a short canoe ride or walk away. The city's great marketplace was a daily wonder. Arriving, they were greeted by a vast open square alive with activity and color. Rows of vendors sat on plat mats with their goods arrayed neatly. Fruits heaped in pyramids, baskets of beans and chili peppers, bolts of cotton cloth folded high, pottery vessels glinting in the sun. The sound of chatter, haggling, and laughter rose like the buzz of a friendly hive. The marketplace was meticulously organized, with each type of product in its own section. As mother and daughter wove through, they passed by textile sellers first. Here fine cotton capes were being sold, soft to the touch, richly dyed. Commoners seldom wore cotton daily by law. Nobles reserved the best cloth, but they might save up to buy a modest cotton garment for special occasions. The mother glanced at a plain white quachly cotton cloak on display. The price was given in cacao beans. One vendor called out that his cloaks were 40 cacao beans each. She made a mental note. She had about 20 cacao beans in her purse now. Cacao beans served as small currency in these markets, allowing shoppers to buy even a handful of chilies or a few tomatoes easily. Next they reached the food section. Mounds of maize ears, squash, tomatoes, avocados, and chia seeds spread before them. The daughter's eyes lit up at the sight of juicy red tomatol tomatoes and fragrant uxocotl. Vendors offered samples of sliced tunas, prickly pear fruits, and the air smelled of herbs and ripeness. They paused at a stall selling salt, an essential they couldn't easily make at home. The mother traded a dozen avocados from her basket for a small sack of coarse salt, a fair barter. No scales or coins needed, just mutual agreement and the guidance of customary prices. A few stalls over, something sizzled on a griddle. street food. An elderly woman was selling fresh tlacoyo, thick corn cakes stuffed with beans and atole drinks. Mother and daughter realized they were a bit hungry. With a smile, the mother gave the vendor 1 cacao bean for 2 hot tlacoyo. They sat on a low wooden bench provided, savoring the treat. The cake was warm and filling, the mashed beans inside seasoned with episode herb. The little girl licked her fingers. Around them, other market-goers were also taking lunch, some sipping foamy chocolate drink from painted gourds, a luxury. Chocolate cost a good number of cacao beans, while others enjoyed roasted chapulines, grasshoppers seasoned with chili and lime, a popular crunchy snack. As they ate, they watched the vibrant scene. There were not only traders but also entertainers in the market. A group of itinerant dancers in bright costumes spontaneously began performing a comic skit, drawing a circle of smiling spectators. The daughter giggled as a dancer, wearing a comical oversized wood mask, pretended to stumble and chase an imaginary turkey to the crowd's amusement. Not far off, a musician played a sweet melody on his reed flute while his partner beat a small drum. The tune mingled pleasantly with the marketplace. Refreshed, the mother moved on to conduct her own trades. She found a vendor who dealt in ceramics. The family needed a new comal griddle, as a small crack had formed in theirs. After some friendly negotiation, she exchanged 2 of her woven mats which the potter's wife liked for her kitchen, plus a few cacao beans for a sturdy new comal. Barter like this, mat for pot, avocado for salt, was typical. The Aztec market system was highly developed and efficient even without money, as we know. Indeed, one Spanish observer noted all kinds of merchandise are found in this market: food, jewels, cloth, marveling at its abundance. The daughter tugged at her mother's skirt, pointing to a stall heaped with toys and little trinkets. Clay dolls, miniature animals, and spinning tops made of wood were displayed. The mother smiled and let her pick one small item. She chose a tiny clay puppet in the form of a monkey, which could dance when pulled by a string. This cost just 2 cacao beans, a minor expense, and the child's face glowed with joy at the new toy. By early afternoon, their basket was lighter and filled now with the items acquired: salt, the comal, a bundle of sage herb, and a small sack of dried chili peppers for the larder. They also had a handful of cacao beans left from trading. The mother decided to buy one more thing: copal incense for home worship. She selected a few nuggets of the tree resin from an incense seller, paying with her remaining beans. The resin's pine-like fragrance would sweeten their nightly prayers. With their marketing done, they started for home. On the way out, they passed the slavery area of the market. Here a few unfortunate souls, debtors or war captives, stood marked for sale, ropes around their waists. The daughter asked innocently why those people were tied. The mother answered softly that those people had become slaves for a time, to pay what they owe. Slavery in Aztec society was not always permanent or hereditary, and slaves had some rights: they could marry, own property, and even buy their freedom. But it was still a somber sight. The mother, not wanting to dwell on it, quickly steered toward a friend who was selling flowers nearby. She purchased a small bunch of sempo hoxocitl, marigolds. Their bright orange petals and rich scent would please the household goddess on the family altar. Finally, mother and daughter left the lively market behind, walking back along the canals under the high midday sun. The girl skipped with energy, hugging her monkey puppet. The mother balanced her purchases and held her daughter's hand, content. She had exchanged goods successfully and even found a few delights. Markets were not just about commerce, they were a social hub where she caught up on news. Today she learned that a cousin in another district had given birth, and that there would be a festival dance practice in the evening. Now it was time to return and continue the day's tasks. Afternoon, homeward bound meal and midday rest. Returning home, the mother found her husband and son already back from the fields as well. The men had paddled their small dugout canoe home via canals, bringing with them bundles of fresh lake produce, some fish wriggling in a basket, a cluster of green horizontal greens pulled from the waters, and a pile of muddy greens that looked like scum. Actually the nutrient-rich spirulina algae, lat, which Aztecs skimmed off lake surfaces to dry into cakes and ea. Such bounty supplemented their diet with protein. It was the hottest part of the day, and typically a time for the main family meal. The mother stoked the hearth fire and put on a clay pot of beans that had been simmering since morning, now tender and ready. Using her new comal, she swiftly patted out and cooked fresh tortillas from the masa dough she'd ground earlier. The father sat cross-legged on a mat, scaling the fish he'd caught, likely tasty white fish or an axolotl salamander from the lake. The little boy played nearby, poking at the spirulina paste with fascination. It would be dried and added to corn dough later, a highly nutritious additive. Soon they all gathered for their midday feast. It was simple but hearty: warm tortillas, black beans mashed and spiced with a pinch of the new chili powder mother bought, and roasted fish wrapped in maguey leaves. There was also a jacara, gourd bowl of cool agua de chia, water flavored with chia seeds, and a squeeze of maguey sap syrup, refreshing like a light lemonade. Eating was done family style, seated on mats on the floor around the spread of food set on a low reed mat. They used tortillas as both plate and utensil, scooping beans with folded pieces. Conversation was gentle and appreciative. The father recounted a small triumph. While weeding the chinampa, he had found an axolotl hiding among the water plants and managed to catch it. These amphibians were considered a delicacy, and indeed one was now sizzling by the fire, to be a treat for the evening meal. The mother described the market scenes, who she met, the good trades she made, and presented the children with little surprises: the toy monkey for the daughter, and for the son, a blowgun dart carved and painted, which she got from a hunter friend. The boy was thrilled, imagining using it in target practice. As they ate, a cooling breeze flowed through the open doorway. In the distance they heard the call of a conch shell trumpet from the temple mayor, likely the hour of a minor ritual or a signal marking midday. Birds flitted in and out of the courtyard, nibbling on stray corn kernels. The baby, now awake, crawled into his father's lap, reaching sticky hands for a morsel of fish. The father chuckled and fed him small bites, careful of bones. There was a strong sense of domestic tranquility in these moments. The family was not unlike families anywhere, enjoying food and each other's company in peace. After eating, it was common to take a short rest, chihuapilla, during the peak heat. The father and mother reclined against rolled mats, and the mother might nurse the baby to lull him to sleep. The older children, however, were not entirely idle. The boy was tasked to go with a cousin to collect more firewood from a nearby grove. Youthful energy harnessed usefully, and the girl quietly played, while also helping rinse the eating bowls at the canal's edge. Aztec children were taught to be helpful and not waste daylight. Still, the atmosphere in early afternoon was unhurried. The hardest work of the morning was done, and the urgent farming tasks accomplished. Later, when the sun slanted low, they would resume lighter work or crafts. In this lull, perhaps the grandfather, if living with them, would tell a short tale or proverb. He might speak of how even the maize plant, no matter how tall, must bow when it tassels, a way of teaching humility, even when one becomes successful, couched in agricultural metaphor. The adults listened and nodded, internalizing the lesson. Aztec culture prized these teachings, the huapillatali, words of the elders, passing them orally in calm moments, so the young could learn proper conduct and philosophy. The little boy, half listening as he gathered twigs, heard the same proverb he'd heard before, and though he might not fully grasp it yet, repetition would seed it in his mind for later understanding. Evening activities: craft, bathing, and worship. As the day cooled into late afternoon, the family engaged in various tasks. The mother turned to her weaving. In one corner of the room, she had a backstrap loom set up, a simple but effective loom, where one end is tied to a post, and the other end loops behind her back as she sits. She had dyed some cotton yarn with indigo blue, and was weaving a patterned cloth. Each rhythmic movement of her hands was precise, and the finished fabric slowly grew. Perhaps it was a new tilma cloak for her husband, or a tribute cloth she owed to the local temple. Weaving was both duty and art. Quietly she might hum a weaving song, keeping time with the click of the shuttle. Nearby, the father and son were occupied with tools. The father inspected his wooden canoe paddle, which had cracked slightly. With a stone blade, he carefully carved a piece of hardwood for a new one. The boy was using a pump drill, a simple tool, with a spindle and string to bore holes in a piece of obsidian, under his father's guidance, crafting new arrowheads. This was a time of skilled handiwork, of maintaining and creating the implements they needed. The Aztecs were resourceful. Every family could do basic carpentry, stone knapping, and basketry for self-sufficiency. After these productive hours, the sunlight turned golden. It was time for bathing and cleansing before night fell. For the Aztecs, bathing was both hygienic and spiritual. The family had a small temazcal, steam bath adjoining their home. Almost every residence did. The father decided to heat it this evening. He piled dry firewood at the entrance of the little adobe sweat lodge and lit it. As the walls heated up, the interior became a warm haven. One by one, family members entered. The space was dim and steamy, lit only by the glow of hot stones. Inside the temazcal, an external fire had made the stones red hot. The father ladled water over them, releasing a burst of steam that enveloped everyone in a purifying way. The mother sighed in relief as the heat eased the soreness in her grinding muscles. They engaged in an almost ritualistic routine. The mother lightly whipped leafy branches over the children's bodies, not painfully, but to stimulate circulation and help sweat, similar to practices in many steam baths worldwide. The Aztecs believed the temazcal cleansed both body and spirit, with a goddess Temazcaltec guarding the bath and Talaltaut, goddess of filth purification, protecting the entrant. In the dimness, the family felt a soothing unity. After sufficient sweating, they stepped out one by one into the cool evening air, skin flushed and spirits lifted. Using gourd dippers, they splashed themselves with cool water to rinse off sweat and any loosened dirt. The mother scrubbed her children's hair with the root of the amoli plant, which foamed gently like soa. The father, ever thorough, even cleaned his teeth with a bit of charcoal and salt, a common Aztec practice for oral hygiene. The Aztecs used salt and tepic urine or ashes as tooth cleaners, and chewed on fragrant tree sap as go. Clean breath and clean bodies were a point of pride. Now refreshed and clean, the family donned fresh clothes. The mother put on a cleaner huipil she'd saved for evening, and braided her damp hair. The father wore only his loincloth at home, finding the evening breeze comfortable on his skin, but threw his tilma cloak lightly over his shoulder if stepping outside. The children looked scrubbed and content, the little boy smelling of sage and the girl with a small marigold flower tucked in her wet hair that her mother gave her from the market bouquet. Sunset arrived in a spectacular display, oranges and purples over the western mountains. As daylight faded, the family gathered again for evening devotions and a light supper. They ate simply, a thin maize gruel with fresh lake algae stirred in, making it a rich green and highly nourishing. There were also a few leftover beans, and the axolotl the father caught had been roasted with herbs. He divided this prized morsel so each got a taste. After the meal, they made sure to save some food for the gods. The mother took a portion of the gruel and some tiny pieces of axolotl meat, placed them on a clay dish and set it on their household altar as an offering. The family then knelt or sat quietly around the altar. In the gentle light of an ocote pine torch and a ceramic oil lamp, they prayed together. The father led,
speaking in formal Nahuatl phrases he likely learned from his elders or the Kalmyk school in youth. He thanked Chikomekoltl, the maize goddess, for the day's food, Taulak for water, and asked Chikatili, the fire god, to accept their offerings. He might also quietly pray to Ketagkoltl, as the evening star twinkled outside, seeking wisdom and a good night's rest for the family. Prayers were heartfelt but not long-winded in daily practice. They believed the gods understood sincerity over verbosity. After prayer, the parents took live coals from the hearth and burned a bit of copal resin on them. A sweet-smelling smoke wafted through the home. This served to sanctify the space and repel any malevolent spirits that might wander at night. Aztecs did fear certain nocturnal spirits, like the Cicoteteo, ghosts of women who died in childbirth, who were said to roam on specific nights causing harm. Incense and ritual acted as protection. Night, reflection, recreation, and rest. With night fully fallen, the city grew quieter. In the distance, one could hear the faint pounding of the Uapil drums and shell trumpets from the ceremonial precinct. The priests were conducting the midnight offerings to ensure the sun would rise again. In the neighborhood, however, most families settled down. Our family spent a bit of time in quiet recreation before sleep. The grandfather or father might entertain the children with a story. A favorite was the legend of the rabbit in the moon. In his deep, slow voice, he told how the great god Quetzalcoatl, in ancient times, once traveled the earth as a humble man and became so hungry and tired that the kind rabbit offered himself as food. Moved by the rabbit's generosity, Quetzalcoatl raised him up to the moon, creating the rabbit's image there, so he would be remembered forever. The children gazed up at the bright moon outside, and indeed could imagine the shadow of a rabbit on its face. Such stories, part bedtime tale, part moral fable, were a gentle way to lull the young ones. They carried messages: compassion, sacrifice, humility, virtues the Aztecs cherished. The younger children drifted to sleep on their petate mats as the story ended. The older son, though, was still awake and eager. He fetched his patoli board, a popular Aztec game, and begged his father for a round. The father chuckled and obliged. They set the small cross-shaped game board on the floor. The mother looked on with a faint smile as she sorted through tomorrow's maize kernels by lamplight. Patoli is a bit like a race and betting game. Players toss beans marked as dice and move jade or pebble markers along the painted square. The father flicked the beans from his hand. A good toss. They laughed as the game pieces hopped and raced. They wagered nominal things, a few wild guava fruits they'd picked, or the outcome of who would do the next day's early water fetching. The stakes were playful. The boy tried invoking Mekilixochitl, the god of games and fate, under his breath for Luke. His father pretended not to hear the almost cheating prayer and feigned despair when the boy's piece landed on a high-value spot. In truth, the father was pleased to see his son learning strategy and probability. Patoli taught risk management in a fun way. In the end, the boy won by a sliver. He whooped softly, mindful not to wake siblings. The father clapped him on the back. "Well played, my son, well played." By now the oil lamp's flame was low and flickering. The mother reminded that dawn came early. It was time to truly rest. She prepared the sleeping area. In this one-room home, there were no separate bedrooms. Instead, rolled straw mats and woven blankets were unfurled in different corners. One corner near the altar was reserved for the parents and baby, another for the children. Everyone knew their spot. They laid down, adjusting woven shawls as covers. Outside, a night breeze rustled the chenampa reeds and brought the scent of water and lilies. Through the door left open for coolness, but with a crude wooden bar in place for safety, they could see the sparkling tapestry of the Milky Way across the sky. The Aztecs called it Mixcoatl, the cloud serpent, and believed it to be a celestial road for the spirits. In the darkness, perhaps the mother softly murmured a last lullaby to the baby at her breast. It might have been the traditional one where the midwife at birth declared to the infant, "You were born into this world of work. Endure and act as a strong one." But now she sang it tenderly, its once stern words turned sweet by melody. The baby sighed and closed his eyes, finally asleep. The father, on the verge of slumber, reflected briefly on the day. It had been ordinary in many ways, no great events, just the cycle of routine, yet it was rich. They had maintained the farm, kept the household, honored the gods, traded in the market, taught the children, and shared laughter. In Aztec thought, doing one's daily duties was itself part of sustaining the cosmos. There was a deep contentment in that. As an ancient Aztec poem goes, "This now is life. In the mirror of life, each of us polishes our face," meaning through everyday actions, one polishes one's character and soul. Before he drifted off, the father might have whispered a quiet prayer to Shuta-Kitli, Lord of Fire, whose presence in the hearth kept them warm through the night. The last red glow of coals in the hearth was like the god's watchful eye. All around, the city's sounds went silent, save for distant dog barks and the occasional call of a night bird. The family mat on which the parents lay was not plush, but their tired bodies found it comfortable enough. The night enfolded them, the stars turning overhead in their eternal procession. In a few hours, Tanate, the sun would rise again, and with it the cycle of tasks and devotions would repeat. Such was daily life for the average Aztec person, deeply cyclical, tied to natural rhythms of day and night, season by season. From the first maize grinding at dawn to the last ember at night, every act held meaning. Work and worship were seamlessly blended, sacred and mundane were one might describe it. They lived in a world where gods walked among kitchen fires and cornfields, and where being a good mother or farmer was as valued as being a great warrior or priest. As the family of five slept soundly on their reed mats, one can imagine the gentle scene, the dim outline of the father's arm protectively over his wife, the children curled like little precious cacao beans next to their parents, and the home tidy and at peace. In that stillness, even the city around them seemed to hold its breath until morning. The Aztecs believed that each night, the sun's journey through the underworld was perilous. There was always a slight uncertainty if dawn would come, yet they trusted that through their piety and the gods' grace, it would. And indeed, as this family's story would continue the next day, the first light of the eastern sky soon quivered, announcing that the great cycle of life was unbroken, and a new day in the Aztec Empire was about to begin. Conclusion: the weave of an Aztec day. In the calm of night, we have traced a full day for an average Aztec family, witnessing how morning labor, afternoon commerce, and evening ritual all interlace. Their life was modest in material terms. They slept on mats and ate mostly maize and beans, yet it was immensely rich in culture and meaning. From childhood, they were taught to balance duty and devotion, finding beauty in routine. A commoner's day involved grinding corn, but also thanking the corn spirit, sweeping the house, but also spiritually cleansing it, working the field, but also singing to the maize, enjoying a game of patoli, but invoking the god of games. Nothing was merely ordinary. Family and community formed the supportive fabric. The household was a microcosm of the empire, with its own hearth, a little temple, its own daily sacrificial offerings of food, toil, and love, and its own rulers, the parents guiding with wisdom. Meanwhile, the wider Calpulian markets linked each family to neighbors and to the heartbeat of Tenochtitlan. Markets especially were social equalizers. A farmer, an artisan, a noble's servant, all haggled under the same canopy of the god's sky. Education and discipline ensured that children grew into the roles needed, every son ready to farm or fight, every daughter skilled to weave and nurture. The strictness with which they disciplined their young, such as the famous scene of a child held over chili smoke for misbehavior, might seem harsh, but it arose from love and a belief that a well-ordered life was a good life. These children knew exactly what was expected at each stage of life, which paradoxically gave them security and confidence. Throughout the day's narrative, we saw the seasons subtly present. The fresh maize was from the last harvest. The midday heat was tempered by lake breezes. This is the highland dry season climate, and thoughts of upcoming festivals, like the Feast of the Flayed God or Rain Festival, might already be in adults' minds as they planned their work around them. Rituals large and small punctuated time. While we focused on a typical day, perhaps not on a major festival day, even so the minor rituals, the incense at breakfast, the prayer at dinner, the communal bath, were profoundly important. On actual festival days, the routine would shift. Work might pause as everyone donned their best garments and headed to temple plazas for ceremonies that could involve the entire city in elaborate dances and offerings lasting all day and night. But after the excitement, they always returned to the reassuring routine of the next morning's corn grinding. In sum, the daily life of an average Aztec was one of balance, hard work and humble pleasures, communal duties and personal bonds, spiritual mindfulness and pragmatic skill. In the calm, slow telling of this boring history for sleep, we discover that what might appear mundane, a woman grinding corn, a man paddling a canoe, children learning chores, is in fact the beautiful tapestry of human life, embroidered with purpose at every turn in the Aztec world, and the Aztec world, and the Aztec world, and the Aztec world.